Chapter 358. What does he think? Yao Qingzuan angrily shouted. He's underestimating the enemy and being too conceited. We vigorously suppressed the Tang and Bai families and destroyed their forces, but it's nothing compared to our losses tonight. Hasn't Tang Yunpeng already left Guangyang? Who's the one leading tonight's operation? We haven't found out yet. Yao Qingqing shook his head. Bam! Yao Qingzuan smashed everything on the table and angrily roared. Haven't found out yet? Guangyang has been beaten to such a state, yet they haven't even found out the exact identity of the enemy? Yao Qingqing bowed his head and didn't speak, while the others didn't even dare to breathe heavily. Shame. All of them were deeply ashamed. After a long while, Yao Qingzuan gasped for a few breaths and sternly said, Tell Liangteng to take some people there, and tell Xinhua to get the fuck back if he has no progress. Don't make a fool of yourself outside. Liangteng? Yao Qingqing and the rest of the Yao family's complexion changed. Yao Qingqing hesitated and said, Dad, Liangteng is the most powerful expert of our Yao family. Isn't it a bit too much to ask him to rush to Guangyang? Besides, he also has to take some people to guard against the Tang family in the imperial capital. If he leaves the imperial capital and the Tang family... Yao Qingzuan waved his hand to interrupt him and coldly snorted. Humph, what if the Tang family does? The Tang family is just a paper tiger now. They can scare those small families, but do they really dare to brazenly attack our Yao family? Humph. It's not that I look down on the Tang family, but I'm afraid they won't dare to attack us even if we lend them some courage. Yao Qingqing was silent for a moment before he slowly nodded and said, All right. Then I'll inform Liangteng to hand over the security work to someone else tonight, and rush to Guangyang early tomorrow morning. Shanghai Airport. Kong Xia, dressed in casual attire, walked out from the exit along with several employees of the magnificent Tang Corporation. Su Quan, who was thin but looked very shrewd, tightly held a black briefcase in his hand. It can't be right? Big Boss Tan Xiao didn't come to pick us up? Su Quan glanced around several times and complained at Kong Xia's side. Kong Xia glanced at him and smilingly said, We didn't contact him before we came. Let's go. I've booked a room at the Kapoor Hotel. Have a good rest tonight. Tomorrow is the wine tasting conference. I spent a lot of effort to get our booth, so we can't afford any mistakes. Chief Kong, rest assured. Sun Quan smiled. Kong Xia nodded slightly and took a taxi outside the airport. The group then rushed to Kapoor's 5-star hotel. After settling down, Kong Xia took a bath and changed into beautiful clothes before dialing Tan Xiao's cell number. Tang Xia, have you arrived in Shanghai? The call was connected, and Tan Xiao's voice came through the phone. Kong Xia said with a smile, Yeah, I've already settled down in the hotel. Where are you? Is it convenient now? I'll go find you. I'm in Guangyang, Tan Xiao said. I have something important to deal with here. I'll go back after I'm done. Guangyang Province. A disappointed look appeared on Kong Xia's face. She hesitated for a moment before asking, Boss, what did you do in Guangyang? Tomorrow is the wine tasting conference. Can you still attend? I'm afraid I won't be able to attend tomorrow, Tan Xiao said. I'm afraid I won't be able to attend tomorrow, Kong Xia asked. Then your school. I've arranged it properly so you don't need to attend the military training, Tan Xiao said with a smile. The official start time of the class is on the 20th, so I just need to rush back before the class starts. As for the wine tasting conference, I need you to oversee it. Kong Xia forced a smile and said, Don't worry. I'll definitely handle it well. All right, then I'll leave it to you, Tan Xiao said. Kong Xia hung up the phone and put down the bag she had just picked up. She walked to the window and looked at the night scenery of Shanghai outside. The sense of loss in her heart became thicker. She put down a lot of work this time, and personally went to Shanghai to attend the wine tasting conference. In fact, the main reason was that Tan Xiao was in Shanghai. She wanted to take advantage of this time to stay with Tan Xiao for a while. But how could he go to Guangyang? Kong Xia shook her head and secretly sighed inside. She found that Tan Xiao was getting busier and busier, and she often couldn't see him for a long time. Guangyang. Tan Xiao put down his mobile with a bit of a forced smile on his face. How could he not understand Kong Xia's thoughts? If it weren't for the matter with the Tang family, perhaps he would have already met Kong Xia, and the two of them would have gone to eat supper somewhere. Beautiful scenery, gourmet food, and beautiful women. It's much better than racking my brains to plot against the enemy in Guangyang. Tan Xiu shook his head. His anger toward the Yao and Sun families suddenly turned thicker. After a moment of silence, he strode out of the room and shouted, "Gu Lang, come out and see me." Whoosh! A figure rushed out of the room. After Gu Lang appeared neatly dressed, he respectfully said, "What's your order, boss?" "My heart is restless and I can't sleep," said Tan Xiu. "Shall we go hunting tonight?" Gu Lang's eyes lit up. He nodded without hesitation and said, "I'll absolutely obey your order, boss." Tan Xiu waved and said, "No need to be so serious. Let's go. We have nothing to do here anyway. Although the Yao and Sun families are already jittery tonight, let's add some fuel to the fire." "That's right, call Li Xiaojie and let him be our driver." "Understood," Gu Lang replied and immediately walked toward the door at the side. "I'll drive the car right away, boss." Without waiting for Lone Wolf to approach the door, Li Xiaojie quickly opened the door and rushed out with a smile on his face. He even imitated the way Gu Lang addressed Tan Xiu. A few minutes later, an off-road vehicle rushed out of the factory gate. Li Xiaojie, who was in the driver's seat, asked with a smile on his face, "Where are we going to hunt, boss?" "To the Sun family," said Tan Xiu. Creak! While braking, Li Xiaojie shouted with a shocked expression, "Boss? We were going to hunt with the Sun family? You're not joking, are you?" "Do I look like I'm joking?" Tan Xiu calmly said. "I don't think so." Li Xiaojie forced a smile. "But, just the three of us going to the Sun family's base camp. We're just going to die. Whether we're going to die or not, we'll know after we go there," said Tan Xiu lightly. "Cut the crap. I'm sure you know where the Sun family's base camp is, right? Let's drive." This, Li Xiaojie hesitated for a moment before he honestly drove forward. He always thought that Tan Xiu was a mature, steady, resourceful, and very capable descendant of the Tang family. Therefore, he never thought that Tan Xiu would do such a crazy thing because of a sudden idea. Going to the Sun family to hunt. This was not a joke. The Sun family's manor was very large, and 1/3 of the Sun family's armed forces were guarding the manor. Let alone the three of them. Even if there were 300 of them, it would be very difficult to take down the Sun family's manor. Li Xiaojie secretly sighed inwardly. When his eyes inadvertently swept over Gu Lang's face, his heart suddenly trembled. It was because he found that Gu Lang not only didn't have the slightest fear, but his eyes were glowing with a high fighting spirit. Freak. The boss is a freak, and his men are also freaks. Li Xiaojie snorted a few times inwardly, and concentrated on driving the car. Guan City Sun Family's Manor. The Sun Family's Manor by the Autumn Water Lake had a beautiful environment and an excellent geographical location. There was a lake in the front and a mountain at the back. There were also all kinds of lush flowers and trees everywhere. Even at night, its beauty could be seen. At a fork in the road a few kilometers away from the Sun Family's Manor, Li Xiaojie parked the car on the roadside. "Boss, you really don't want me to go with you?" Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "Gu Lang and I are going to sneak in. After we leave, drive the car far away to avoid being discovered by the Sun family's people." "I got it," said Li Xiaojie. "But pay attention to your safety, boss." Tan Xiu made an okay gesture and silently approached the Sun family's manor with Gu Lang under the cover of the night. At the same time, Tan Xiu had also released his spiritual sense, covering a radius of 200 to 300 meters. Within this range, he could clearly observe even the slightest movement of the grass, an ant, or a blade of grass. "Gu Lang, are you raised by yin or?" Approaching the courtyard wall outside the Sun family's manor, the two of them didn't directly climb over the wall, but leaned against the wall and whispered. "Yes," said Gu Lang. "As far as I know, Yen'er has bestowed a total of 6 surnames to 6 people. Aside from Gu Xiaoxue, you're the first person I've seen with the surname Gu," said Tan Xiu. "You don't look that old. You should be less than 30 years old, right?" 29, said Gu Lang. Tan Xiu shook his head. He was a bit helpless in this situation of asking and answering. He used his spiritual sense to observe that there was a patrol team of 10 people passing by, so he wanted to chat with Gu Lang in a low voice to kill time. He didn't expect his character to be so eccentric. A few minutes later, after the patrol team left the range of Tan Xiu's spiritual sense, he pointed to the electric net on the wall and whispered, "I'll throw you over there. It might be a bit high, so be careful and don't fall when you land." Gu Lang looked at the nearly 3-meter courtyard wall and the 1-meter electric net on both sides. He nodded and said, "A height of 4 to 5 meters is no problem for me. I once jumped down from the 3rd floor and was safe and sound." "The 3rd floor?" Tan Xiu glanced at Gu Lang and secretly nodded inside. For an ordinary person, being able to jump down from the 3rd floor and come out unscathed was indeed breaking through the limits of the human body. "Go!" Tan Xiu grabbed Gu Lang's waist and shouted in a low voice. His arms fiercely flung him up and threw him into the courtyard from above. A slight landing sound was heard. Tan Xiu found through his spiritual sense that Gu Lang was like an agile leopard cat as he rushed into the nearby woods. He immediately exclaimed in admiration. In the next moment, his toes stepped on the wall and his body sprinted. His fingers had already clasped the top of the wall under the electric net. As his fingers exerted force, his body soared into the sky and his toes also stepped on the place where his fingers had just clasped. Although it was just a light touch, the trace of force made him jump more than a meter higher, and then easily flipped into the courtyard wall of the manor. Here's the 7th chapter. Although I'm exhausted, Jingye still has to pay the remaining 3 chapters. Brothers and sisters, let's continue our journey. Chapter 359. Tan Xiu's movements were as smooth as floating clouds and flowing water. The moment his feet stepped on the ground, he was like a cheetah shuttling through the bushes. In the blink of an eye, he had already dashed into the grove. The Sun family is very cautious. Pay attention to your safety. Tan Xiu looked at the flashlight light in the distance that was getting closer and closer as he whispered. "I know, boss," said Gu Lang. Tan Xiu pointed to several garden houses that were shrouded by his spiritual sense and whispered, "Our plan to assassinate the Sun family's people today is very hasty. We don't know much about the Sun family's environment or their armed forces. Therefore, we'll focus on the assassination list while the others will act as support. The elderly, children, and women. If they don't resist, try not to kill them as much as possible." "Understood." A strange expression appeared in Gu Lang's eyes as he silently nodded. Along with the patrol team's lights, they disappeared at the end of the distant path. Tan Xiu took Gu Lang through the blind spots of several surveillance cameras and silently approached the nearest garden house. In Tan Xiu's spiritual sense, he had already seen the garden house. Apart from a woman and 2 children, there was also a middle-aged man sitting in the study room, playing with a pistol. Li Yi, the Sun family's son-in-law. He's good at fighting and has a flexible mind. He has made many contributions to the Sun family. When Tan Xiu saw the man's appearance, the investigation information about him emerged in his mind. The photo on the information was exactly the same as the middle-aged man. In the study room, Li Yi was playing with the pistol with a smile in his eyes. He was silently thinking about something in his mind. Sun Feilong is dead, and the Sun family's power has been greatly reduced. The available manpower is getting less and less. Then wouldn't he be able to get more rights? Take charge of more territories? Humph. Those who are not of my clan will have a different heart? So what if I don't have the Sun family's bloodline? Wait until more and more of you die, then my rights will get bigger and bigger. At that time, even if you don't want to use me, you won't be able to find anyone else to replace me." Li put down the pistol and simply didn't see the shadow flashing outside the window. He dialed a cell number and said in a deep voice, "Big Biao, control our people. The Sun family doesn't know about your existence. Now is the time when the Sun family has become the Yao family's lackey and fight with the Tang family. The more people from the Sun family die, the more power and wealth we will get from the Sun family in the future. So, preserve your strength. If there's a chance in the future, it's not impossible for us to replace them." Understood. Li hung up the phone and grabbed the pistol again. Outside the window, Tan Xiu heard Li Yi's words clearly. A strange light flashed in his eyes. Without alerting him, He quietly left and met up with Gu Lang in a dark corner. With a smile, Tan Xiu lowered his voice and said, "Interesting. A foreign member of the Sun Clan doesn't seem to be of the same mind as the Sun Clan. Keep him, he'll be of great use to me in the future." Gu Lang didn't know what Tan Xiu meant, but he absolutely obeyed Tan Xiu's order. He nodded and said, "Then shall we go somewhere else?" "All right." Tan Xiu replied and slowly rushed toward a nearby garden house. In the dark, Tan Xiu and Gu Lang sneaked into the garden house, and almost wasted no effort as they came to the bedroom on the second floor. At this time, a man and a woman were sleeping soundly in the bedroom. Tan Xiu recognized that the man was a member of the Sun family's branch family, BM Puff. As Gu Lang's fist hit the woman and directly knocked her out, the Mitsubishi Army knife in Tan Xiu's hand tore the sleeping man's throat and directly killed him. Next one. The two of them didn't stay for long. They came and went without a trace and soon appeared in another garden house. Tan Xiu could observe with his spiritual sense, so he could easily observe the situation in each garden house and find the enemy's location in the first place. Although Gu Lang didn't have a super cheating tool like Tan Xiu, he had fought countless times in a hail of bullets and had a strong experience in assassination. Therefore, under the cooperation of the two of them, 6 members of the Sun family in the garden houses were either knocked out or killed in just half an hour. The number of people who died in their hands had reached 8. Inside a garden house in the Sun family's manor, Sun Feiwu hadn't rested yet. 2 burly men were standing in front of him, reporting the losses tonight and discussing how to solve the problem tonight. He was the third brother of the Sun family's patriarch, Sun Feilei, an absolute figure with real power. Moreover, he alone controlled 1/3 of the Sun family's military force and nearly 1/10 of the family's wealth. It could be said that if the Sun family lost him, it would be tantamount to breaking a finger. "Chang, my second brother has been killed. I'll temporarily hand over the family business he used to manage to you. I've already discussed it with Big Brother, and he has agreed. Remember, I'll send you 20 experts who will listen to your command. Once you find the enemy, you don't have to worry and kill them with all your strength." Sun Feiwu's eyes fell on one of the burly men and said with a serious face, "Don't worry, I'll kill the Tang family's bastards one by one. I guarantee that they'll die a very..." Puff! A Mitsubishi Army knife fiercely stabbed into the man's back, and a pair of slender fingers covered his mouth. At the door, another figure dashed in like lightning with a dagger in his hand. In just a breath's time, the man had already dashed to the side of another burly man. As the dagger left his hand, it stabbed into the burly man's neck. "Who's there?" Sun Feiwu's complexion greatly changed. He reacted quickly and opened the drawer, grabbing a pistol from inside. When the muzzle was aimed at Sun Feiwu, Tan Xiu, who was the first to dash in, had already flashed to his side. The knife was raised and slashed down, chopping off Sun Feiwu's hand that was holding the pistol. "Don't make a sound." Tan Xiu strangled Sun Feiwu's neck and covered his mouth with one hand, while the Mitsubishi Army knife in his other hand was also placed on his neck. The pain made Sun Feiwu's complexion turn red. His body twitched, but he couldn't make the slightest sound. He could only watch helplessly as 2 of his trusted men were killed and fell in a pool of blood in front of him. His heart was like a cold flood in June, incomparably cold. A smile hung on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth as he lightly said, "Life is the most important thing. No matter how much wealth you control or how much power you have, you can't take anything with you once you die. So staying alive is the most important thing. Give me money and I'll spare your life." Sun Feiwu endured the pain and squirmed his lower lip, indicating that he wanted to speak. Tan Xiu released Sun Feiwu's mouth and coldly said, "Don't even think about calling for help. You can only make a little bit of sound at most, and the knife in my hand will tear your throat. Take the money and buy your life. I want to know how much your life is worth." "Who are you?" Sun Feiwu felt the blood flowing out of his wrist and hurriedly asked. "You don't need to know who we are," Tan Xiu said with a faint smile. "Us brothers have been stranded in Guangyang province, and now we can't even eat. We heard that your Sun family is very rich, so we originally wanted to kidnap your wife and extort money from you. But she has been staying in your family these 2 days, refusing to go out no matter what. So us brothers can only take the risk to get some money from you." Sun Feiwu's pupils contracted as he asked in a deep voice, "You're not from the Tang family?" Tan Xiu's brows pricked as he pretended to be surprised and asked, "The Tang family? Who's the Tang family?" Sun Feiwu's heart was shaken as he said in a deep voice, "You're not from the Tang family, yet you dare to break into my Sun family. Aren't you afraid that you won't be able to return? You must know that there are patrols everywhere in our manor. You'll die without a burial ground as long as you're discovered." With a strange expression, Tan Xiu said, "Do you have patrols in this broken manor? How come you didn't notice us when we sneaked in? I just saw a few guys following you in, and then left. Only the three of you stayed here." Damn it! Sun Feiwu's heart was filled with hatred. Never in his dreams did he expect that these two bastards with strong martial strength were not from the Tang family, but for his money. They were extremely lucky and didn't bump into the patrols and slipped into his place. What an unlucky thing. He had encountered it countless of times, but he dared to swear that he had never encountered such an unlucky thing in his life. "How much money do you want? I'll give it to you," Sun Feiwu said in a deep voice. "I heard that your Sun family is very rich, and your wife seems to manage a big company. You should have a lot of money in your hands, right?" Tan Xiu said with a smile, "Tell me, how much is your life and your wife's life worth? Remember, if you dare to deceive us and don't give us the money, you'll die a miserable death. We'll also humiliate and torture your wife and then kill her." The killing intent in Sun Feiwu's heart surged. But at this moment he was like a fish on the chopping block. Although he wanted to kill them, he didn't dare to act rashly. "I'll give you the money. I'll give you 10 million. 10 million. Tan Xiu was pleasantly surprised. "You'll really give us 10 million? Gu Lang said. "Your life is worth 10 million? That's too little." Gu Lang said. "You said 10 million is too little, Gu Lang?" Tan Xiu asked. "Does their family have more money?" "That's right. I heard that their big company is worth more than 1 billion, Gu Lang said. Tan Xiu's complexion changed. He stabbed the knife into Sun Feiwu's thigh and covered his mouth as he shouted, "Damn bastard! You want to send me away with 10 million? Do you think I'm that gullible? No, give me more." Gu Lang said, "I think he can afford to pay 200 million yuan. 200 million? Tan Xiu exclaimed. "Can he really take it out?" Gu Lang said, "Whether he can take it out or not depends on his ability. If he can't give us 200 million, then we'll kill him and let him ask his wife for it." "That's right. Women are very timid." Tan Xiu nodded. "How about we kill him now? I heard that his wife is very good looking. We can. I'll give it to you." Sun Feiwu immediately interrupted Tan Xiu the moment he released Tan Xiu. Chapter 360. Tan Xiu looked at Sun Feiwu with satisfaction. Now that the Tang family had suffered heavy losses, he didn't mind killing the Sun family's people to make up for the family's losses. The conversation with Gu Lang just now was, in fact, what the two of them had discussed before. The two of them had killed many high-ranking members of the Sun family. Before coming to Sun Feiwu's place, they had forced those people to transfer more than 200 million to Gu Lang's account. Gu Lang, give him the account and tell him to transfer the money through the online bank immediately. Upon hearing it, Gu Lang immediately gave the account to Sun Feiwu. A few minutes later, after Gu Lang had received the money, he lightly said, "Your life is saved, but your wife's life has yet to be saved. Give me another 200 million, and we'll let you and your wife go." Sun Feiwu was furious. Gu Lang raised the dagger in his hand and lightly said, "Think about it yourself. If you don't want to spend money to buy your wife's life, then you'll be knocked out, and your wife will have a very miserable end." "I don't have that much money. There should be more than 100 million in my account. My wife and I only have this much in total. The rest of the money is in the family business," said Sun Feiwu bitterly. "Check the balance in your account and transfer all the money to me," said Gu Lang lightly. "All right." Sun Feiwu hesitated for a moment, and quickly checked his account balance, and told the number to Gu Lang. Gu Lang glanced at it and lightly said, "There's still more than 110 million. Transfer all of it to me." Sun Feiwu didn't utter another word. After transferring all the money, he then said, "Can you let us go now? Also, if you promise me one thing, I'll give you all the money and I won't tell anyone. What is it? Asked Tan Xiao. Follow me later and I'll ensure that you'll be rich and have no worries for the rest of your life, said Sun Feiwu seriously. Tan Xiao released Sun Feiwu and walked toward him, saying with a smile, Your condition is very tempting. If my surname wasn't Tang, I might consider your opinion. Puff. The dagger in Gulang's hand pierced Sun Feiwu's heart. Damn. So you're really the Tang family's people. You clearly said that I'll give you money. Sun Feiwu's pupils constricted as he cried out in rage. Tan Xiao interrupted him and smilingly said, I did say that I won't kill you if you pay me for your life. But I'm not the one who did it, so you better die and reincarnate. The dagger in Gulang's hand stabbed several times before finally touching Sun Feiwu's neck. Only then did he look at Tan Xiao and say with a smile, Boss, we earned quite a lot today. Tan Xiao smiled and said, It's indeed quite a lot, much more than I expected. Looks like robbing houses can really make a fortune. What was that saying again? A horse is not fat without grass at night, and a man is not rich without a windfall. Keep this money safe for now. After tonight, transfer it to the Swiss bank immediately. All right. Lone Wolf nodded. Half an hour later, after Tan Xiao and Lone Wolf killed 21 members of the Sun family, a furious roar came from the garden house not far away. Someone's been killed. There's an enemy. In the garden house, Tan Xiao and Lone Wolf glanced at each other and tacitly nodded. They no longer looked at the man lying in a pool of blood and quickly ran outside. Under the monitoring of Tan Xiao's spiritual sense, he could clearly observe any scene within a radius of 200 to 300 meters. His expression changed slightly when he saw the patrol teams that had broken into his divine sense and returned. The Sun family's patrol team's reaction and mobility are very strong. We'll encounter a patrol team of 10 people ahead. Don't get entangled with them and kill as many as you can. The most important thing is to escape, whispered Tan Xiao after hiding in the bushes. Got it. Killing intent flashed in Lone Wolf's eyes. He had experienced this kind of scene countless times, so he didn't have any fear. On the contrary, he was a bit excited to follow Tan Xiao and take risks. He was now like a fish struggling in the river. He wanted to be a carp that jumped over the dragon gate, and become a dragon that could dominate the sea after obtaining the opportunity. Go. Tan Xiao whispered, and the two moved forward side by side. In just 20 seconds, they had already met the patrol team of 10 people. Without any nonsense, Tan Xiao and Lone Wolf launched a fierce attack the moment they saw each other. The middle-aged man who pulled out his pistol was cut by Tan Xiao and his heart was pierced by Tan Xiao before he could shoot. At this moment, Lone Wolf's nimble movements killed 2 people at once. Be careful. Lone Wolf's complexion suddenly changed, and his body instantly rushed to Tan Xiao. At the moment when he knocked Tan Xiao out, his right arm was pierced by a bullet, and blood splashed out. Sniper? Tan Xiao's complexion changed. Within the scope of his spiritual sense, except for the members of the 2 patrol teams who were rushing at a very fast speed, there was no sign of a sniper at all. In other words, the sniper was now aiming at them from a further distance. Go. Tan Xiao waved his saber, and killed a member of the patrol team. He reached out and grabbed Lone Wolf's other arm, and rushed toward the wall of the villa. Get ready. When Tan Xiao was still more than 10 meters away from the wall, he shouted. Sprinting forward, the lightning-like figure was getting closer and closer to the wall. When he was only 4 or 5 meters away, he threw Lone Wolf out, and he, using both his hands and feet, jumped over the electric fence on the wall, and successfully rushed out. Puff! The moment Tan Xiao lifted his leg and dashed away, a bullet hit the place where he moved his feet. Boss, be careful. Lone Wolf's speed slowed down a lot, and Tan Xiao easily caught up with him. Tan Xiao did not speak. The moment he reached out and grabbed Lone Wolf's shoulder, his speed increased again. He had already raised his speed to the extreme, and he fled to the distance like a ghost. In the Sun family's villa, Sun Feng was holding a sniper rifle and observing through binoculars. He shot a total of 2 times, one of which hit an enemy's arm, and the other missed. At this time, no one knew how horrified he was. He had encountered many powerful opponents, but none of them had such a fast speed. That speed? It had simply broken through the limit of what a human could do. Even if he was far away and used the sniper rifle's scope to observe, he could only capture a little bit of the trajectory. Is he still a human? Sun Feng's mouth revealed a touch of bitterness. Looking at the enemy disappearing in the distant night, he helplessly put away his sniper rifle and quickly ran down. On the side of the road 4 or 5 kilometers away from the Sun family's villa, Li Xiaojie was sitting in the driver's seat, smoking and observing the surrounding scene. Suddenly, his expression slightly moved. When he saw Tan Xiao sprinting back from tens of meters away, his complexion slightly changed. What a fast speed! Li Xiaojie's heart was greatly shaken. With his keen eyesight, he saw Lone Wolf being carried by Tan Xiao, as well as his arm that had been dyed red with blood. Bam! The door was opened and quickly closed. Tan Xiao shouted in a deep voice. Quickly drive the car and evacuate immediately. Li Xiaojie started the car and drove away at a very fast speed. After driving for more than 10 kilometers, he asked, "Boss, is Lone Wolf okay?" At this time, Tan Xiao had torn the clothes on Lone Wolf's wound and pressed his acupoints to stop the bleeding. Upon hearing Li Xiaojie's question, he shook his head and said, "It's not fatal. But we must return to Hongpa district as fast as possible. I need to take the bullet out of his arm." "Got it," Li Xiaojie replied. Lone Wolf grinned and said with a smile, "This injury is nothing, boss. We can't go back to Hongpa district directly. We even have to abandon this car halfway. Otherwise, the Sun family's people will be able to find the factory in Hongpa district through the surveillance video on the road, as well as the place where this car appeared." Tan Xiao pondered for a moment before he immediately took out his mobile and dialed Tang Wei's cell number. When Tang Wei's drowsy voice was heard, Tan Xiao said in a deep voice, "Don't sleep yet. Immediately drive out and pick us up. I won't tell you the specific address, but we'll keep in touch." "What do you mean? Aren't you?" Tang Wei became spirited and asked curiously. "We were bored at night, so we went to the Sun family to assassinate them," said Tan Xiao. "Lone Wolf was injured and needs to go back to treat his injuries. Hurry up and don't dawdle." "All right." Although Tang Wei was shocked that Tan Xiao and Lone Wolf went to the Sun family to assassinate them in the middle of the night, he also knew that it was not the time to understand the situation. After replying, he put on his clothes and rushed outside. Half an hour later, Tang Wei received Tan Xiao's group of 3. The car driven by Tan Xiao's group was abandoned. Li Xiaojie shot the fuel tank from afar, causing it to burst into flames. The 4 of them then left at an extremely fast speed. "This license plate may be fake, but we can't leave it behind." Li Xiaojie stuffed the license plate into the car and sat down. He then looked at the gloomy Tang Wei. At this moment, Tang Wei was furious. He was furious that Tan Xiao, Lone Wolf, and Li Xiaojie were so bold that they even dared to run to the Sun family to assassinate them. He had heard that the Sun family's armed defense force was very tight and powerful. He felt it was a bit inconceivable that the 3 of them could come back alive. "Tan Xiao, if Grandpa knows about this, I'm sure he'll be furious. You're too bold. It's fine if you went to other places to assassinate them, but you actually dared to run to the Sun family to assassinate them. Are you tired of living?" Finally, Tang Wei couldn't bear it anymore. He glanced at Tan Xiao through the rearview mirror and said angrily. A smile outlined on the corner of Tan Xiao's mouth as he said, "I know you're worried, Brother Tang Wei. But aren't we already out of there now? Besides, our performance tonight is pretty good." "Boss, you just went in for more than an hour. How many people can you kill?" Li Xiaojie forced a smile. "You sneaked in for more than an hour? And you even managed to escape?" Tang Wei frowned. "If we don't count those patrolmen we killed when we came out, we killed a total of 21 people from the Sun family," Tan Xiao said with a smile. "All of them are members of the list I made. They're also the backbone of the Sun family. Unfortunately, we didn't find the Sun family's patriarch, Sun Feilei. Otherwise, tonight's sneak attack would have been a success." "What?" Chapter 361. Tang Wei's expression greatly changed, and even Li Xiaojie looked incredulous. 21? The Sun family's backbone power, the concentrated power of the clansmen, was probably only a dozen people, while the number of high-level stewards was probably less than 30. They had killed a few before, Yet Tan Xiao and Gu Lang had killed 21 people in just an hour? So, almost all the Sun family's clansmen had been killed? Tang Wei gulped down and probed. Brother, you're not lying, right? You really killed the 21 people on the Sun family's list? Absolutely. Tan Xiao nodded. That list was made by me, so I naturally know who we killed tonight. Also, I found something interesting tonight. Perhaps it won't be long before the Sun family is no longer our enemy. What do you mean? Tang Wei was confused. Just wait. Tan Xiao smiled mysteriously. You'll know soon enough. At this time, the Sun family's manor had turned into a pot of porridge. Many old, weak, sick and disabled people ran out of the garden houses and shouted loudly. Teams of patrol members were constantly rushing between the garden houses. As the corpses were carried out, people kept crying and howling. Li Yi led the members of the two patrol teams. With a pale face, he commanded everyone to carry the corpses out and carry them to the Sun family's central square. At this time, he secretly felt lucky because he found that the enemy came from the courtyard wall closest to his residence, but the enemy didn't attack him. Instead, they started to attack the Sun family's clansmen who lived not far from him. Harbor City River Bay Manor. Sun Feilei and Yao Xinhua were plotting the next action plan and sharing the armed forces that both sides still had. Although the Sun family suffered heavy losses tonight, Sun Feilei was confident that he could completely defeat the Tang family and become the biggest super family in Guangyang province with the help of the Yao family. Ring, ring, ring. Their conversation was interrupted by the urgent ringtone of a mobile phone. Sun Feilei frowned. Anger flashed in his eyes when he saw that the call was from his wife. After the call was connected, he said in a deep voice, I have something important to do now, so I can go back later. Don't bother me if there's nothing important. Honey, something happened. The woman's sobbing voice came from the phone. Sun Feilei's expression changed. He suddenly stood up and asked, What happened? The Sun family is finished. The woman began to weep. Sun Feilei angrily shouted, As long as I'm alive, the Sun family will not be finished. Hurry up and tell me what happened. Hubby, some enemies sneaked into our Sun family's manor and killed many of our people. Fei Wu is dead, Sun Wei is dead, Qianjin is also dead. Almost all of the direct descendants of the Sun clan are dead. All the people who held important positions in the Sun family are dead. 21. Not counting the patrol members who were killed, 21 are dead. What? Fei Lei shouted angrily with his eyes wide open. He simply couldn't believe his ears. The dignified Sun family manor house definitely had extremely powerful armed defenses. How could there be an enemy attacking the Sun family manor house? Also, he even killed so many high-level members of the Sun family? Bastard, are you kidding me? This joke is not funny at all. The woman cried even louder. I'm not joking. I'm telling the truth. All of them are dead. Our Sun family is finished. Sun Feilei's body trembled and the mobile in his hand fell to the ground. What happened, Patriarch's son? Asked Yao Xinhua in a deep voice. Sun Feilei looked up blankly and saw the concerned expression on Yao Xinhua's face. He seemed to have lost his soul as he slumped on the sofa and muttered, They're all dead. All the high-level members of the Sun family are dead. Yao Xinhua's expression greatly changed. He grabbed Sun Feilei's clothes and angrily shouted, What the hell are you talking about? Who has the ability to kill all the high-level members of the Sun family? I don't know. Sun Feilei shook his head. It was my wife who called me. Not counting the members of the patrol team, just the high-level members of the Sun family alone are dead. Yao Xinhua loosened Sun Feilei's clothes. With a frightened look on his face, he took 2 steps back and gulped down his saliva. The Sun family was the local tyrant of Guangyang. There were only about 30 people who held real power in the entire Sun family. A few of them had died before, and now another 21 had died. Then, how many high-level members of the Sun family were still alive? Yao Xinhua took a deep breath and suppressed the fear inside his heart. He then shouted in a deep voice, Let's go. We'll immediately go to the Sun family. Fukang Province, the Huang family. Huang Jinfu had already fallen asleep, but he was awakened by his cell phone's ringtone. When he hung up the phone, his face was full of shock. That's right. He was shocked by the information he had just received. The dignified Sun family of Guangyang had its high-level members massacred overnight. Although the number of enemies had yet to be investigated, it was said to be very small. Only 2 of them were discovered. The Everlasting Feast Hall. Hehe. The Sun family is probably finished since the Everlasting Feast Hall has become their enemy. The Yao family TSK. If the Everlasting Feast Hall mobilizes all their people, massacring the Yao family overnight, it shouldn't be a big problem, right? Huang Jinfu took a deep breath and immediately dialed a cell number. Old classmate, hurry up. It's best if Bai Yang can return to the Bai family tomorrow morning. I know. Just now You also received the news? The Sun family is finished? Yes. Huang Jinfu forced a smile and said, Now you should understand how terrifying the Everlasting Feast Hall is, right? Let alone the Sun family, even my Huang family. I'm afraid will be completely massacred overnight. Brother Jinfu, tell me, what kind of force is this Everlasting Feast Hall? The middle-aged man's voice came out again from the phone. I don't know. Huang Jinfu forced a smile. I really don't know. It's very mysterious and very terrifying. The most important thing is that the Everlasting Feast Hall's people are too low-key. I understand. You can rest assured that I won't send people to investigate the Everlasting Feast Hall. Also, I'll try my best to build a good relationship with the Everlasting Feast Hall's people. That's right, if you see that person again, please help me ask if the Everlasting Feast Hall is willing to open a branch in Guangyang. My Chu family will definitely spare no effort to help. All right. The phone call ended. Huang Jinfu's expression was a bit complicated. After putting down the phone, he draped his clothes and came to the window. Looking at the quiet scenery outside, he secretly sighed inwardly. Who would have thought that the Sun family would suffer an unprecedented blow on such a peaceful night? There's also the Chu family. I'll help them if I can. If the Chu family can build a good relationship with the Everlasting Feast Hall, the Huang family can consider reaching a secret alliance agreement with the Chu family in the future. Imperial capital. Tang Guosheng was awakened from his sleep. After listening to the phone call, he burst into laughter and immediately called Tan Xiao. Compared to Tang Guosheng, the Yao family's old patriarch, Yao Qingzuan, had completely lost sleep. After being silent for a long time, he also dialed Yao Xinhua's number and said 4 words. Turn offense into defense. The next morning, 2 Audi cars drove into Guangyang's Nanha Detention Center. After several middle-aged men entered, they only stayed inside for a few minutes before leaving in a hurry. Inside the detention center, inside a detention room with poor conditions, Bai Yang looked at the 4 walls and smoked a cigarette with a dispirited face. The cigarette was given to him by the detention center's director, who had once received his grace. He knew. He was finished. Perhaps, it was very likely that his Bai family was finished. He was a bit resentful, blaming the old patriarch for choosing the wrong side in the past. Why did he choose to stand on the Tang family's side? He was very clear about the Tang family's current situation. Although they had an extremely high reputation, and could be regarded as a top family in the imperial capital, there was no way to compare them with the past. Now, I'm afraid the Tang family's forces in Guangyang can't even protect themselves, right? I'm afraid it's difficult for me to be safe and sound. Bai Yang sighed inwardly. Bang! Along with the sound of the iron door outside, the detention center's director, Jiang Yangwen, along with several police officers, came to the room where Bai Yang was detained. Director Jiang, what are you doing? Bai Yang's heart sank as he asked. With a thick smile on his face, Jiang Yangwen said, Brother Yang, I just received an order that you've been released. Furthermore, it's an order issued by the provincial number 1 and number 2 at the same time. That's right, the provincial number 1 also said that you should hurry back home. He'll treat you to lunch at the Tsuewei house. What did you say? A shocked expression appeared on Bai Yang's face as he asked with uncertainty. Jiang Yangwen repeated what he had just said and said with a smile, Brother Yang, it's really all right. They said that the investigation has been done and the person who framed you has been arrested. It's a member of the Sun family who wrote an anonymous letter. Also, there's news that the guy will be sent here to be detained soon. Bai Yang swallowed his saliva and glanced at the police officers. Jiang Yangwen instantly understood Bai Yang's thoughts. He waved to the police officers and motioned them to leave first. When there were only 2 people left in the room, he said, "Brother Yang, what do you want to know?" "Director Jiang, what's the reason?" Bai Yang asked. Jiang Yangwen took a few steps back and looked outside the door to make sure that there was no one else. Then he moved closer to Bai Yang and whispered, "Brother Yang, something big happened in Guangyang. Wasn't the Tang family's Starlight Group HQ burned down? Last night, someone burned the Yao family and the Sun family's HQ building. Moreover, 200 to 300 people from these 2 families died. I heard that they were assassinated. That's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that the Sun family is miserable. Late last night, someone sneaked into the Sun family's villa and killed most of the Sun family's senior members. Now, apart from the Sun family's head, Sun Feilei, there are only a few core members of the family in the other provinces." A look of ecstasy appeared on Bai Yang's face. Suddenly, he had a profound realization. Mountains and rivers are heavy, and there's no way out, but there's a glimmer of hope at the darkest hour. The tragedy of the Sun family and the loss of the Yao family made him think of the Tang family. He was even sure that the Tang family was the one who could do such a big thing. Chapter 362. Imperial Capital, Tang family's ancestral residence. It was reasonable to say that it was very difficult for the core members of the Tang family to gather, unless it was a festive occasion. But today, except for those who couldn't rush back from other places, everyone else was gathered here. Even Tang Yunda and his wife, who had yet to return to Star City, also came here. "Have you heard? Our Tang family has bullied the Yao and Sun families in Guangyang. Just last night, the Yao family and the Sun family suffered huge losses. I got the news. Tan Xiao is indeed worthy to be a descendant of our Tang family. His means are really amazing. Last night, I heard the old patriarch laughing for a long time. Yunda Lingyun, you really have a good son. If it weren't for Tan Xiao, I'm afraid our Tang family's business in Guangyang would have been completely driven out." Tang Yunda listened to the discussions of the people around him, as well as his family members who were chatting amiably with him. The smile on his face was particularly bright. On the contrary, Su Lingyun's smile was a bit forced. But considering Tang Yunda's face, she still forced a smile to deal with everyone. "Little Yin, are you unhappy?" After noticing his wife's expression, Tang Yunda pulled her to the place where people were talking and asked in a low voice. "No, I'm not unhappy. I'm just a bit worried." Su Lingyun shook her head. "There are so many family members involved in the family's major event. I can't figure out why Xiao ran to Guangyang to preside over the overall situation. Although I don't understand the disputes between big families, I heard that it's very cruel. So many people from the Yao and Sun families have died. I'm afraid that if something unexpected happens to Xiao, Tang Yunda gently hugged Su Lingyun in his arms and softly said, "Don't worry. Xiao can do so well in Guangyang, which shows that he has grown up. There are some things that he must experience sooner or later, but now it's a bit ahead of time. You see, isn't Xiao fine now? He called the old patriarch last night, and he's still safe and sound. Maybe he brought people to beat the Yao family until they're afraid." "Will the Yao family really be afraid after being beaten?" Su Lingyun asked hesitantly. "If they're afraid of being beaten up, does that mean that the dispute between our 2 families will end?" "I can't say for sure now, but I think it should be almost there," said Tang Yunda with a smile. "The Yao family doesn't really want to shed all pretense of cordiality with our Tang family. What they did in Guangyang and Fukang was just to test the waters and test our Tang family's cards." Su Lingyun was a bit relieved as she nodded and said, "Yunda, do you think we should go to Guangyang to support Xiao?" "I'm afraid." "No need to be afraid." Tang Yunda shook his head. Xiao was smart and brave. If he really couldn't take it anymore, he definitely wouldn't force himself to do so. "Can't you see how happy everyone in the family is? It means that we have now won. I'll ask Old Master later. If things over there come to an end, I'll ask Xiao to hurry back to Shanghai." Su Lingyun quickly nodded and said, Yes. You must ask him later." Xiao was a university student at a prestigious university like Shanghai University. I can't let it affect my studies. Don't worry. Tang Yunda comforted her. Inside the ancestral house, the two brothers, Tang Guoxing and Tang Guoshou, sat face to face with only a tea table between them. At this moment, both of them had smiles on their aged faces. Amazing. Truly amazing. Tang Guoshou exclaimed. Tang Guoxing nodded and said, I agreed to let him preside over Guangyang before, but I actually didn't expect him to do anything. I even made up my mind that even if I lose Guangyang, I'll just lose it. I'll just consider it as sharpening him. I didn't expect that the surprise he gave me would turn out to be. Ring ring, ring. A mobile phone rang. Tang Guoxing picked up the phone. After hearing the other party's words, he suddenly stood up and hurriedly asked, Is what you said true? Baiyang has been released? Guangyang's number 1 and number 2 signed the authorization at the same time? Good. Ha! I got it. After hanging up the phone, Tang Guoxing happily said, The Bai family's patriarch, Baiyang, has been released. I really didn't expect it. What Xiao did yesterday even shocked number 1 and number 2. I'm afraid they don't want us to have a dispute with the Yao and Sun families again, so they released Baiyang. Tang Guoshou squinted his eyes and slowly said, Big brother, don't let the pleasant surprise get to your head. I don't think this matter is that simple. It's reasonable to say that Guangyang's number 1 and number 2 are not our people. Although they're not the Yao family's people, they should hope that we and the Yao family will fight to the death, right? Tang Guoxing stared blankly for a moment, and the smile on his face quickly receded. After hesitating for a while, he said hesitantly, Could it be that they don't want a large-scale fight to happen in their territory again? Unlikely. Tang Guoshou shook his head. The Chu family is the biggest family in Guangyang, and the Chu family's patriarch is the number 1 figure in Guangyang. He has a close relationship with the neutral party, so they shouldn't easily intervene. But I think this matter has nothing to do with Xiao. Tang Guoxing shook his head and smilingly said, I say, third brother, don't you think Xiao is too powerful? Even if he's very outstanding, there's no way he can intervene in the officialdom, no? You. Tang Guoshou was silent for a moment before he took out his mobile and said, I'll call him and ask. Tang Guoxing stared blankly for a moment before he couldn't help laughing and said, Since you insist on thinking so, I'd like to see the result. You call him. Half a minute later. Tang Guoshou dialed Tan Xiu's number. After Tan Xiu picked up the call, he smilingly said, Xiu, it's me, your third grandpa. Where are you now? I'm on the way to Fukang province. Tan Xiu replied. I know what you did, Xiu. Asked Tang Guoshou with a smile. It's very good, very good. The Yao family's arrogance has been beaten down by you. Third grandpa, you called me not just to praise me, right? Tan Xiu smilingly asked. What's the matter? You're too smart, kid. Tang Guoshou laughed. That's right, I have something to ask you. The Bai family's patriarch, Baiyang, has been released this morning. He personally called your grandpa to express his gratitude. I'm curious, is his release related to you? That's right. Tan Xiu said. I found the patriarch of the Huang family in Fukang province and made some deals with him. Don't ask about the deal, third grandpa. I guarantee it won't bring any harm to the Tang family. It's my other business dealings. The Huang family's patriarch, Huang Jinfu, can influence the Chu family. Tang Guoshou was surprised. My business dealings are not only with the Huang family, but also with the Chu family, said Tan Xiu. Although I don't have direct contact with the Chu family, it's the best choice to go through the Huang family's patriarch, Huang Jinfu. Tang Guoshou's lips squirmed as he sighed. Heroes have always been young since ancient times. I'm convinced. There are only a few people in this world who can make this old man convinced, but I'm convinced by you. You've done these things beautifully, very beautifully. When you come back to the imperial capital, let's have a good drink. All right, Tang Xiu said with a smile. Tang Guoshou hung up the phone and looked at Tang Guoxing, who had a strange expression on his face, saying, Big brother, did you just hear it? I turned on the loudspeaker. Baiyang being able to come out is indeed Tan Xiu's doing. As for the deal he made with the Chu family, I won't ask since he doesn't want to say it. Tang Guoxing's eyes flickered as he murmured, Third brother, haven't you noticed that Xiu is too mysterious? I suddenly have a feeling that he's not hiding something from us, but hiding too many secrets from us. Who cares? Tang Guosho grinned. No matter how many secrets he's hiding from us, he's still a descendant of our Tang family. He won't do anything bad to our family. As long as he has the ability and is willing, I'm sure no one in the family will object even if you directly pass the Tang family's patriarch position to him. Tang Guosheng said with a smile. You're right. Tang Guosheng said with a smile. If he has the ability, the Tang family's power can be handed over to him in the future. How could he do something harmful to his own family? Forget it, let's not ask about it. Let's not send people to investigate. I believe he'll tell us one day in the future. All right. On the other side. The Tang family was celebrating, while the Yao family was gloomy and gloomy. The Yao family's patriarch, Yao Qingzuan, had a livid complexion and didn't speak a word. He sat in his study for several hours and only stepped out at noon. Chengqing informed Liang Teng to come back. Also send someone to the Tang family. Tell them that the Tang family's old geezer is in poor health and send him some tonics. Yao Qingqing's complexion greatly changed as he hurriedly said, Dad, isn't this the same as admitting defeat to the Tang family? Our Yao family's loss in Guangyang is not big, but the Sun family's. Furthermore, we haven't exerted our strength in Fukong. Once we start there, the Tang family's chances of keeping Guangyang and Fukong are not big. Yao Qingzuan coldly snorted and said, Until now you still haven't clearly investigated the Tang family's people in Guangyang. What do you think our Yao family's chances of winning are if we continue fighting? This, Yao Qingqing didn't know how to answer. Suddenly, Yao Qingqing's cell phone rang. When he picked up the call and listened to the other party's words, he didn't speak for a long time. What happened this time? Seeing his son's silent expression, a bad premonition arose inside Yao Qingzuan's heart as he asked in a deep voice. With a bitter expression, Yao Qingqing said, Baiyang has been released. It's Guangyang's number 1 and number 2, who signed the authorization at the same time. Furthermore, someone from the imperial capital has also spoken. Yao Qingzuan's complexion changed. After a long silence, he suddenly smiled. However, his smile was a bit ugly. What a good Tang family. I didn't expect them to hide so deeply. As long as that Tang family's old geezer doesn't die, I'm afraid it'll be a bit difficult to bring them down. Forget it. We've already probed everything that needs to be probed. Let's just do as I instructed earlier. All right. Yao Qingqing nodded without a word. Yao Qingzuan stopped his son who was about to leave and said in a deep voice, Remember, even if the fight over there is suspended, you must clearly investigate who's the Tang family in Guangyang. I'll pass down the order. I'm really sorry. I've been discussing a very important project today and haven't been able to touch the computer, so the update was late. Wait for the second chapter. Chapter 363. On the provincial highway from Guangyang to Fukong, 2 cars sped along at lightning speed. Tan Xiao was sitting in the second car, quietly reading the information about the Yang family. This time, he didn't bring a large number of people with him to Fukong, only 6 experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall. It was because the first step in his plan was to carry out an assassination. Assassination could be described by the saying, It's not the quantity of soldiers that counts, but the quality. Each of the 6 experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall was capable of holding their own. Therefore, Tan Xiao was confident that the 7 of them could set off a bloody storm in Fukong in the following assassination operation. Boss Instructor Chun is in Fukong. He wants to see you. A man in the front seat turned his head and reported after hanging up the phone. Who's Instructor Chun? Tan Xiao raised his brows and asked with a puzzled expression. Chun Xiaohua. The man whispered. Where is he now? Tan Xiao looked surprised and asked. He's in the Emerald Grand Hotel, answered the man. We haven't determined a place to stay anyway. Let's go straight to the Emerald Grand Hotel. Tan Xiao nodded. Understood. The man nodded. Half an hour later, the 2 cars drove to the underground parking lot of the Emerald Grand Hotel in Fukong's provincial capital. After parking the cars, the 7 of them took the elevator to the 18th floor. Just as he walked out of the elevator, Tang Xiu saw a middle-aged man with glasses standing outside. He looked gentle and refined. "Boss." Chen Xiaohua's eyes lit up upon seeing Tan Xiu and he bowed to salute. Tan Xiu observed him and nodded. "You're Chen Xiaohua, right?" "That's me." Chen Xiaohua replied with a smile. Tan Xiu waved his hand and walked toward the corridor while asking, "How did you come to Fukang? Does our everlasting feast hall also have an antique business in Zhou City?" Chen Xiaohua accompanied Tan Xiu and said while walking, "There are indeed several antique shops in Zhou City, all of which are our everlasting feast hall's businesses. But I came here this time because I have something to ask you, boss." "What is it?" Tan Xiu asked in surprise. Chen Xiaohua said, "Boss, let's talk in the room. I've already prepared the tea and have been waiting for your arrival." A strange look flashed across Tan Xiu's eyes as he nodded. Soon, under the guidance of Chen Xiaohua, Tan Xiu entered a presidential suite. The 6 men he brought with him stayed in the corridor. "Drinking tea is just a cover, isn't it? Tell me, what are you trying to do?" Chen Xiaohua stood in front of Tan Xiu and said with a smile, "Boss, first of all, I'd like to report to you about the cultivation situation. I have already converted all the true qi in my body into true essence, and my strength has increased by another level. Thank you for your trust and cultivation. I will carry out any orders you give me in the future." Tan Xiu gestured for him to sit down. After Chen Xiaohua sat opposite Tan Xiu, he said again, "Boss, what I want to ask you is, do you think there are other worlds outside our world?" Tan Xiu narrowed his eyes and nodded. "There are." Chen Xiaohua's spirit shook and he said, "Boss, I have something for you to appraise." After saying that, he took out a piece of ore from his pocket and bowed before Tan Xiu. 7-colored Luan Phoenix stone? Tan Xiu's complexion greatly changed after he saw the stone with a 7-colored halo of red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and purple. After quickly grabbing it in his hand, his spiritual sense had already wrapped the 7-colored Luan Phoenix stone. After inspection, this was an ordinary 7-colored Luan Phoenix stone. But even if it was ordinary, if it was placed in the immortal world, it was likely that countless powerhouses would fight for it. Even the supreme-level characters in the immortal world would drool over it. 7-colored Luan Phoenix stone was an excellent material for refining immortal tools. A fist-sized 7-colored Luan Phoenix stone could be refined into a supreme-grade immortal tool. In the past, Tan Xiu had several supreme-grade immortal tools, 2 of which were mixed with 7-colored Luan Phoenix stone. When used, their power was much stronger than other supreme-grade immortal tools. "Chen Xiaohua, where did you get this ore?" With a solemn expression, Tan Xiu stared at Chen Xiaohua and asked. Chen Xiaohua's complexion slightly changed and said, "Longquan Mountain in the west." "Tell me how you got it," said Tan Xiu. "Boss, you also know that I manage the antiques business of our everlasting feast hall," said Chen Xiaohua. "I heard that there are a lot of precious antiques in the West due to special reasons. That's why I brought some people here. About 2 months ago, we arrived at Longquan Mountain and found that the environment there was good. There are more than 100 villagers living in Longquan Mountain, and they have some old objects left from ancient times. I spent some money to buy those old objects. However, the road in Longquan Mountain is very difficult to walk on, so we stayed there for a night. At night, we had nothing to do, so we went hunting in the mountain and lost our way. Longquan Mountain may seem to have a beautiful environment, but it's actually very dangerous. That night, we encountered terrible fierce beasts and almost lost our lives there several times. As a result, we stumbled into a forest and found that the air there was very fresh, much fresher than anywhere else. Even breathing it made us feel comfortable all over. However, there were also very powerful fierce beasts in that forest. We were forced to go deeper and deeper. Later on, we found a tomb with an open entrance. We had no choice but to go in, only to find that we seemed to have entered another world. There were flowers and grass, blue sky, and white clouds. Most importantly, more than 80% of the plants and beasts inside were things we had never seen before. In addition, there were a lot of fierce beasts inside. Even speaking up to there, Chen Xiaohua stopped and a bit of fear could be seen in his eyes. "Even what?" asked Tan Xiu in a deep voice. "We even found the shadow of a dragon there," said Chen Xiaohua in a low voice. It was a pitch-black black dragon with 5 claws. The black dragon was about 5 meters long and spewed out black flames. It was very terrifying. We saw the black flames sprayed on a boulder weighing tens of thousands of kilograms, and the boulder melted into liquid. Go on, Tan Xiu said. Chen Xiaohua said, we didn't go too deep, because it would only lead to death. So we quickly went back the way we came, and it took a lot of effort to come out alive. After I returned to Jingmen Island, I told the little boss about it, but the little boss asked me to keep it a secret. Tan Xiu frowned. He had never heard Gu Xiaoxue mention this matter. It wasn't until we learned the cultivation technique from old Ji that I suddenly realized that the air in the place we had been to was particularly fresh because it was full of rich world energy, continued Chen Xiaohua. After I transformed all the true qi in my body into true essence, I mentioned this matter to the little boss again. Therefore, the little boss asked me to come here to find you and tell you what I know. But what? Asked Tan Xiu. But the little boss asked me to tell you something. It's very dangerous there, and he hopes you can be cautious, said Chen Xiaohua. It's best not to go there for the time being and wait. Tan Xiu finally understood why Gu Xiaoxue didn't tell him before. She was well aware of his own strength, and was afraid that he would rush there regardless of the danger after hearing about the small world. Chen Xiaojie, you must never tell anyone about this matter except for me and Gu Xiaoxue. That place is not something we can enter now, unless we're tired of living. One day in the future, when our strength becomes stronger, I'll take you there. I understand, boss. Chen Xiaohua nodded. You can rest assured. Give me this 7-colored Luan Phoenix stone, Tan Xiu said. Tell me a weapon, and I'll help you refine a divine weapon later. Chen Xiaohua's eyes lit up and immediately said, a dagger would be the best. I found that you all like to use daggers, said Tan Xiu with a smile. Just wait. When I use this 7-colored Luan Phoenix stone, I'll refine a dagger for you. By the way, you brought this 7-colored Luan Phoenix stone out from that small world. What else did you bring out? I found that this stone is different from the others. It seems to be a rare ore, said Chen Xiaohua with a forced smile. We only found this piece inside. As for the other things, we didn't bring them out. I have to say that you're very lucky to be able to come out alive with your strength. Tan Xiu nodded. All right, let's stop here. Go back and tell Gu Xiaoxue to rest assured that I won't go there in a short time. I'll keep it in mind. Chen Xiaohua nodded. Are you free at noon? Asked Tan Xiu. Let's have lunch together. Understood. Chen Xiaohua was pleasantly surprised and his attitude became more respectful. After lunch, Chen Xiaohua left the Emerald Hotel, and the presidential suite he booked naturally became Tan Xiu's residence. However, his buttocks had yet to warm up when he received a call from the old patriarch. Grandpa, what did you say? That's it. Tan Xiu's brows were deeply furrowed, and he was a bit annoyed inside. His next battle plan had been completed. Yet the old patriarch said that the Yao family had taken the initiative to admit defeat, and wanted to end the game between Guangyang and Fukong. Let's stop for the time being. What our Tang family needs the most now is time. According to the plan I've drawn up, the Tang family's accumulated wealth for decades will all be poured into it. We must train more talents in the next 3 to 5 years. I want the Tang family to return to its heyday in 10 years at most, or even surpass its heyday, said Tang Guoxing with all seriousness. Tan Xiu was silent for a while before he helplessly said, all right. Since you've decided, then I'll obey. It's a pity. I thought I could make a fortune by playing the game with the Yao, Sun, and Yang families. But now it seems that I can only fish for some benefits. What benefits? Tang Guoxing was confused. Today is Valentine's Day. Quiet Night can only update the last chapter. There's no way to add more chapters. Please understand, brothers and sisters. I'll definitely return the monthly votes later. Chapter 364. When Tan Xiu heard Tang Guoxing's inquiry, he faintly smiled and said, when we carried out the assassination in the Sun family's manor, we also threatened those who were killed and made them transfer some money to me. It's not a lot, only about 600 to 700 million in total. I originally planned to take action against the Yao family and fish out some money from them. Yet you unexpectedly asked for a truce. Cough cough. Tang Guosheng was at a loss whether to laugh or cry as he coughed a few times. This grandson of his didn't forget to fish for benefits even when carrying out the assassination. He really admired him. Xiao, our Tang family is still inferior to the Yao family. Just wait and see. When we really develop, we won't let this matter go. You'll have the time to fish for benefits later. As for the 600 to 700 million, just take it as pocket money. Tan Xiao said with a smile. All right. Since the matter here is over, then I'll return to Shanghai tomorrow. Who will handle the matter here? Give it to Little Wei, Tang Guosheng said. No problem. If you don't have any other instructions, then I'll hang up first, Tan Xiao said. All right. The call ended. Tan Xiao fiddled with his mobile phone and shook his head with a helpless expression. Afterward, he called the Huang family's patriarch, Huang Jinfu, and told him that the matter was over and he no longer needed the Huang family's intelligence network to provide information. At night, he personally brought Tang Wei to the Huang family and enjoyed dinner with the Huang family's patriarch, deepening their friendship before returning to the Emerald Hotel. Boss. Hei Long stood outside the Emerald Hotel. Upon seeing Tan Xiao coming back, he immediately greeted him with a happy expression. Tan Xiao nodded and brought Hei Long upstairs to the presidential suite. After taking a seat on the sofa, he calmly said, Hei Long, you're very lucky. The Yao family has admitted defeat, so the dispute between our two families is over. You've done well in Hongpa district, so I'll keep my promise and give you a good future. Thank you, boss, Hei Long said excitedly. Tan Xiao waved his hand and said, I'll leave Guangyang tomorrow. Tang Wei will be in charge here for the time being. He will help you expand your territory. In the next few years, if you really have the ability, it won't be impossible for you to become the leader of Guangyang's underground forces. But you have to promise me something. Black Dragon's body shook violently as he hurriedly said, Boss, please tell me. I'll definitely agree. Don't agree so fast. Tan Xiao shook his head. My requirements are very simple. You must not be involved in drugs, you must not be forced into prostitution, and you must not be allowed to operate a casino. I don't care what kind of business you do, but if you violate these 3 conditions, I will personally cut off your head before the police take care of you. The Black Dragon hesitated. Boss, I can agree to your request. But my manpower and financial resources are limited. If I want to take over the entire Guangyang province, I'm afraid. Tan Xiao said. If you want money, give me money. If you want people, give me people. The Black Dragon's spirit shook and he immediately said, I understand, boss. Don't worry. I'll definitely work hard and seriously. No matter what I do in the future, I'll give you 2/3 of the income from my business every year. You're very astute, Tan Xiao said with a smile. I'm a bit worried now. Will I raise a tiger and invite calamity? You're joking, boss. Black Dragon forced a smile. With your strength and the Tang family's power, let alone making me a major force in Guangyang, even if my men spread all over the country in the future, I still won't be your opponent. But I heard that the Sun family is very miserable. A smile outlined on the corner of Tan Xiao's mouth as he waved and said, I'm just joking with you. As for the money you hand in every year, just take 1/3 of it and give it to the Tang family's person in charge in Guangyang. This is also our Tang family's investment in you. Yes, yes, yes. Black Dragon was happy inwardly as he repeatedly nodded and replied. Tan Xiao waved and said, All right. If there's nothing else, you can go back first. After Tang Wei has dealt with the matters here, he'll look for you. As Black Dragon left, Tang Wei entered the room from the outside. Tan Xiao told him about Black Dragon and told him to take good care of him. Brother, that Black Dragon is not a good person. Tang Wei forced a smile. As far as I know, not only is he ruthless, but he's also heartless. You killed 2 of his trusted men with your own hands. Yet he didn't bear any resentment. This kind of person values benefits the most. I'm afraid it will be very troublesome to restrain him later. Actually, this kind of person is the best to control, Tan Xiao said with a faint smile. With the Tang family as a deterrent, he won't dare to do anything out of line. Since he values benefits, then we'll give him benefits. As long as he has the ability, he'll be a sharp knife for our Tang family if we use him well in the future. However, the Tang family's support for him can only be done in secret. I understand. Tang Wei nodded and said again. Are you going to leave Guangyang tomorrow? Haven't you already asked for a leave from Shanghai University? As a matter of fact, I still have things to do in Shanghai, Tan Xiu said with a faint smile. Since the matter here has been temporarily concluded, it's meaningless for me to continue staying here. I'll go back earlier to handle my business. What business? Tang Wei was surprised. How come I never heard you mention it before? Tang Wei was surprised. Tan Xiu said, I have a winery in Star City. Today is the wine tasting conference that happens once every few years. The wine produced by my winery has been sent to the wine tasting conference. I'm also looking forward to this wine tasting conference to promote my business in this area. Tang Wei couldn't help laughing and said, Brother, you really dabbled in a lot of business. All right. Leave it to me, you can rest assured. Guangyang, Guan City Airport. Yao Xinhua and a few of his trusted men were sitting quietly in the waiting room. His mood was very bad, simply bad to the extreme. Originally, he brought a group of elite experts from his family and joined hands with the Sun family to destroy the Tang family's territory here, almost causing the Tang family to lose Guangyang. However, the situation didn't go according to his plan. On the contrary, the Tang family's counterattack unexpectedly caused him to suffer heavy losses. And even the Sun family was almost destroyed. The game in Guangyang this time was a disgrace to him. He didn't want to return to the imperial capital with his tail between his legs, but his family's patriarch had ordered him to go back and end the game with the Tang family in Guangyang. This made him so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. Young master. A strong man strode into the waiting room. Yao Xinhua slightly frowned and said in a deep voice, What's the matter? The strong man replied in a low voice, Young master, it's been investigated clearly. Ever since Tang Yunpeng left Guangyang, the one in charge of the Tang family's affairs here is called Tan Xiu. He's the one who led the Tang family's experts to attack us. Tan Xiu? Yao Xinhua frowned and said, I know the Tang family's people more or less, but there's no such person in the Tang family. Where did he come from? The strong man said, Tan Xiu is the biological son of the Tang family's Tang Yunda. He's been wandering outside all these years. 2 months ago, the Tang family found Tan Xiu and took him back to the family to carry out a ceremony to recognize his ancestors. He's 20 years old this year. I heard that he has just been admitted to college, and he's also the top scorer in science subjects in Shuangqing province. A few days ago, Tang Wei came to Shanghai to find him, so the Tang family gave him full authority to deal with the matters in Guangyang. Yao Xinhua's complexion changed as he coldly said, You mean my real opponent is this Tan Xiu? And he's only 20 years old? A young brat who has just been admitted to college? That's right. The strong man could feel Yao Xinhua's anger, but he still answered honestly. Yao Xinhua was silent for a while. Then he suddenly grinned and shook his head, saying, I didn't expect the Tang family to hide so deeply. They even push such a young brat to the front to cover up. It's really like they're hiding something. I think that the real person in charge of the Tang family in Guangyang is not Tan Xiu, but someone else. Otherwise, how could a young brat defeat me? The strong man said in a low voice, Young master, I also think so after getting the information. I also sent someone to investigate Tan Xiu's situation in Star City. He's very ordinary, very ordinary. He's just lucky to know some people with a bit of power. Who are they? Asked Yao Xinhua. The strong man said, Long Zhengyu, the young master of the Long family in Star City, and Chen Jizhong, the owner of the Endless Virtue Pharmaceutical. That's right, he's also a high school classmate of the Yuan family's big boss, Yuan Jingshuan's son, Yuan Chuling. Yao Xinhua shook his head and said, That brat does have a bit of ability, but the element of luck is too heavy. It's not worth paying attention to. All right, let's put aside the investigation on Tan Xiu. You continue to investigate the Tang family's chief commander behind the scenes. Shanghai Linyuan Community. Han Qinggu was driving a red Audi A4. After registering at the gate, she slowly drove inside. She had long gotten the key that Tan Xiao entrusted Yu Kai to give her. But she hadn't given the money to Tan Xiao yet, so she hadn't come over. She happened to have nothing to do today, so on a whim, she rushed over to see the house. I hope the house that brat gave me is good. Otherwise, I'll make him look good when he comes back. Han Qinggu followed the address of the house and parked the car in front of a residential building. Then she took the key and entered the building. The grade is good, huh? Can I really rent this place for such a small amount of money? Han Qinggu found that there was actually a property manager's office inside. Moreover, there were several well-dressed men and women who were busy working there. The construction and decoration of this place gave her a feeling that it was a high-end atmosphere. 27th floor. After taking the elevator to the 27th floor, Han Qinggu stood in the corridor and looked at the two doors on the first floor. She immediately took out the key and opened the door according to the room number given by Tan Xiao. Heavens! Isn't this too exaggerated? Han Qinggu strode through the door. After seeing the environment inside, her eyes stared wide and her mouth slightly opened with a surprised expression. I'm busy with work this week, so I can only maintain 2 chapters a day for the time being. But on Sunday, I'll definitely strive to make up for all the chapters with monthly votes. Chapter 365. The magnificent hall was decorated in an extremely luxurious style. The floor and wooden floor were covered with beige carpets, and all kinds of appliances were high-end foreign brands. Even the sofas in the living room were expensive leather sofas. The most exaggerated thing was the 60-inch LCD TV, which could directly watch movies at home. It's too extravagant. Han Qinggu took off her shoes and went to other places to look around. Her beautiful face showed a dissatisfied and shocked expression, and she couldn't help but sigh. She made a rough estimate and found that the area of the house was at least 250 square meters. 5 bedrooms, 3 living rooms, 1 kitchen, and 2 bathrooms. Even the balcony was more than 10 square meters. She knew the housing prices in Shanghai. In this metropolis where every inch of land was worth its weight in gold, such a house would definitely cost more than 10 million. After looking around, Han Qinggu took out her mobile phone with a wry smile and dialed Tan Xiao's number. After a while, the phone was connected. Tan Xiao, are you kidding me? Your friend's house is too. You're not satisfied. Tan Xiao's voice came out of the phone. Han Qinggu said with a wry smile. It's not that I'm not satisfied, I'm very satisfied. This house is simply a mansion, with an area of at least 250 square meters, and the decoration is super luxurious. Tell me, will they agree to pay a few thousand yuan a month? Tan Xiao said. It's good that you're satisfied. I said that they just don't want the house to be empty, and they don't care about the rent. If you don't want to live here, then forget it. Han Qinggu hurriedly said. I'll live here. Who said I won't live here? It's a waste not to take advantage of it. It's settled then. When you come back from abroad, I'll give you half a year's rent first. Okay. Tan Xiao agreed and directly hung up the phone. Han Qinggu took the phone and listened to the busy tone coming from the other side. She couldn't help but roll her eyes. However, looking at such a luxurious and beautiful house, a smile appeared on her face again. The next day, the bright sun shone on the earth. Shanghai World Trade Exhibition Center. Hundreds of brands of drinks from all over the country were placed in front of the counters. There were several people in charge of each counter. In the aisle outside the counter, liquor wholesalers from all over the country were loitering in front of each counter, looking at all kinds of fine wines. Inside counter number 0246, Kong Xia quietly sat on a chair, watching the stream of people coming and going. The God's nectar produced by the magnificent Tang Corporation's winery was once unknown to many people, yet no one showed any desire to order it. In fact, because of the price list displayed on the signboard, countless people ridiculed him. How come I've never heard of this magnificent Tang Corporation? And this wine, there was only one type, but it was priced at 18888. Was this an international joke? I really don't know how stupid the boss of this group is to actually sell it at such a sky-high price without any fame. There are indeed a lot of expensive drinks in the country, But this god's nectar is really not afraid of making others laugh their heads off. The owner of this liquor must be crazy for money. 18,888 for a bottle? Isn't this too fake? Don't tell me they used bejeweled nectar inside? When the forest is big, there are all kinds of birds. I guess this company deliberately raised the price so high for the sake of publicity. Let's go, let's not bother about it. Kong Xia quietly listened to the comments of the passers-by with a tranquil expression. Even Su Quan, who was standing at the side, maintained a smile on his face, paying no attention to the discussions of the others. Grandpa, this wine is interesting. I've never heard of this name, yet it's priced at 18888. Is this wine better than the top-grade Wuliangya? A crisp female voice came over. An old man and a young man came to the front and back of the counter. The old man looked at the 4 bottles of God's nectar placed on the counter with a surprised look on his face. After hesitating for a moment, he looked at Su Quan inside and curiously asked, "Little brother, where's the origin of your wine? Also, the other counters can taste it, but why don't you have it?" "Uncle, the origin of our wine is Shuangqing Province's Star City," said Su Quan with a smile. "As for why we can't taste it, it's because we're afraid that people who don't know its quality will spoil it. Also, we don't need the favor of those liquor wholesalers. The reason why we're participating in the wine tasting conference is that we just want to spread the reputation of this god's nectar." The old man gave a thumbs up and praised, "You're courageous and confident. Such being the case, I'm looking forward to the taste of your wine. So, since you can't taste it, how about I buy a bottle from you? To be honest, there are not many things that can make this old man curious these days, but this wine has aroused my curiosity." Su Quan turned to look at Kong Xia. Kong Xia got up from her chair and looked at the pair of grandfather and granddaughter in front of her. She then said with a smile, "Uncle, we brought 4 bottles of wine. Except for the 2 bottles we need to use in the wine tasting conference, we can use the remaining 2 bottles at will. Since you want to taste it, then I'll give you a bottle for free. If you think this wine is good, I hope you can help promote it." The old man stared blankly for a moment before he nodded and said with a smile, "Well said, well said." After saying that, the old man took a bottle of God's nectar in his hand, and then said to his granddaughter next to him, "Littling, give me my wine cup." "All right." The 17 or 18-year-old girl carefully took out a 4-cornered crystal cup from the bag she was carrying and handed it to the old man. The old man opened the bottle and poured half a cup into the 4-cornered crystal cup. Suddenly, his eyes widened with a surprised look. "It's mellow and intoxicating. Although this old man hasn't tasted it yet, I'm already attracted by the wine's aroma." The old man let out a deep sigh, then took a sip. A few seconds later, his expression became stunned. Then his old face turned red, and at the same time, there was a strong sense of shock. Under Kong Xia and Su Quan's smiling expression, the old man slowly closed his eyes. "Grandpa, don't keep us guessing. How's this wine?" The girl pulled the old man's sleeve with a dissatisfied expression on her delicate face. The old man instantly opened his eyes and couldn't help but praise, "Good wine. Good wine. This old man has drunk countless wines in his life, but there's only one kind of wine that can be compared to this." Su Quan grinned and said, "Are you kidding me, uncle? I've also drunk a lot of wine, but I've never tasted anything better than this. I went to Shenangjia more than 40 years ago and found a group of monkeys there," said the old man with a smile. "Have you heard of it? It's called monkey wine. Unfortunately, I had a chance to drink a few mouthfuls before I was attacked by those monkeys and eventually fled in defeat. The taste of that monkey wine is still unforgettable. I never thought that there would be such a good wine in this world apart from that monkey wine." Su Quan suddenly understood and said with a smile, "I've only heard about monkey wine, but I've never tasted it. Uncle, since you think our god's nectar is good, then you must help us promote it. Rest assured, this old man will naturally abide by his promise." The old man smiled and said, "Anyways, can I order some wine from you first? We'll go with the price you mentioned." "Thank you for liking our god's nectar, uncle. But we won't sell it privately," said Kong Xia with a smile. "If you like it, we'll send it to our exclusive stores in each city after the wine tasting conference." You can buy it there. Your company opened its own exclusive stores? The old man was surprised. That's right, said Kong Xia with a smile. The old man gave a thumbs up and praised. That's a big move. Nowadays, those wineries sell their wine to liquor wholesalers who open exclusive stores all over the country. But you actually invest in your own exclusive stores and sell it directly to the customers. Amazing. This is our boss's request, so we can only obey it, said Kong Xia with a smile. Who is your boss? The old man nodded and asked. I'm sorry, uncle. Our boss rarely intervenes in the company's affairs, so we can't announce his information to the public due to his character of not showing his face in public. Perhaps in the future, you will know who he is. The old man couldn't help laughing and said, It seems that your boss must be a big shot. Anyways, how about we make a deal? I really like this wine. Since we met here, can you sell me some in advance? I don't want a lot, just sell me 10 boxes. I'll go to your store to buy more after I finish drinking it. Kong Xia was a bit hesitant. The old man took out a business card from his pocket and handed it to Kong Xia, saying, Young lady, this is my business card. Kong Xia took it and glanced at it. Her complexion slightly changed. Are you Elder Du Kuan, the Vader Group's boss? I didn't expect that a young lady like you would know me, said Du Kuan with a smile. Like me and the magnificent Tang Corporation's boss, I hardly appear at the front desk, no? Kong Xia took out a business card and handed it to Du Kuan, saying, Elder Du, we've actually talked on the phone before. Du Kuan stared blankly and took Kong Xia's business card. He frowned and thought hard for a while before he asked with a confused expression, I know the name Kong Xia. You're the most famous gold manager in the world. Are you? If I'm not mistaken, you should be talking about me, said Kong Xia with a smile. But I don't dare to accept the title of the most famous gold manager in the world. Du Kuan was a bit moved. He looked at Kong Xia deeply and curiously said, I still remember that I personally invited you to be the CEO of our Vader Group, but you refused. Kong Xia said with a smile, I just came out from my previous company. I've been working hard for many years, so I wanted to have a good rest. Du Kuan finally confirmed Kong Xia's identity. A solemn and respectful expression appeared on his face as he nodded and sighed. I really didn't expect that the magnificent Tang Corporation's boss would be able to invite you. He's really lucky, really lucky. Kong Xia said with a smile. Elder Du, since you want to buy our wine, then I'll take the liberty to sell you 10 boxes. However, we didn't bring it with us this time. I'm afraid you'll need to send someone to Star City to get it. No problem, Du Kuan said with a smile. Chapter 366. Following Du Kuan's departure, it didn't take long for many people to learn from him that this year's wine tasting conference would have a God's nectar with a mellow taste and superb taste. If it were someone else praising the God's nectar, perhaps everyone would just laugh it off. But Du Kuan, whether it was in the business world or his other identity, made people secretly surprised. He was actually one of the judges of this year's wine tasting conference. Old Du, you're not someone who talks big. Is that God's nectar really as exaggerated as you said? The organizer of the wine tasting conference, Qin Chonglin, vice president of the China Wine Industry Association, asked with a curious expression. The other judges of the wine tasting conference also looked at Du Kuan curiously, waiting for his answer. I can guarantee that the magnificent Tang Corporation's God's nectar will definitely make you praise it. Du Kuan smiled. How about I pour a cup for you to smell? Qin Chonglin couldn't help laughing and said, Old Du, don't joke around. Let us smell it. Letting them taste their wine before the official start of the wine tasting conference is already giving them a big face. Du Kuan crooked his finger at his granddaughter behind him. The girl quickly took out the bottle of God's nectar and poured a cup. The fragrance of the wine overflowed. In just a few seconds, Qin Chonglin and the 5 judges' eyes instantly lit up. One of them couldn't help but gulp down his saliva. Fragrant. It's really fragrant. They simply couldn't believe that just a single cup would have such a strong and pure wine aroma. Qin Chonglin quickly reached out and said, Let me taste it. Du Kuan's eyes and hands were quick. He instantly grabbed the four-cornered crystal cup from his granddaughter's hand and poured the wine into his stomach. Then, an intoxicated expression appeared on his old face. This wine should only exist in the heavens. How many people in the world can smell it? Dukuan couldn't help but sigh again. Puffed. The girl looked at the 6 people around and gulped down their saliva. She couldn't help but laugh out loud. Qin Chonglin grabbed an empty cup from the side and winked at the girl. Immediately, the girl smiled and poured him a cup. Let me taste it. Qin Chonglin placed it in front of his nose and sniffed it. After revealing a slightly intoxicated expression, he took a small sip. A moment later, his expression turned into one of shock and disbelief. President Qin, how is it? A judge hurriedly asked. Qin Chonglin looked at the remaining god's nectar in his cup and looked a bit helpless. He forced a smile and said, I regret it. I really shouldn't have drunk this wine. The judge was taken aback. He then looked at Du Kuan and said with a smile, Old Du, your lie has been seen through, right? This wine smells good, but I'm afraid it's not that good. Haha. Qin Chonglin glanced at Du Kuan, who had a strange smile on his face, and said with a wry smile, Little Li, I haven't finished speaking yet. I mean, I regret drinking it because I'm afraid I won't be able to drink it again. Old Du was right. This wine should only be found in the heavens. How many times could one smell it in the mortal world? Good wine, peerless wine. If I don't drink a few mouthfuls every day, I'm afraid I won't be able to sleep well in the future. The judge was stunned. He quickly grabbed an empty cup and extended his hand to the girl. The others looked surprised and grabbed their blankets one after another. 1 minute later, the 5 people's expressions were the same as Du Kuan and Qin Chonglin, who had just drunk the god's nectar. Shock and disbelief were written all over their faces. Old Du, tell me quickly, where did you get this wine? Quick, quick, quick. I've never drunk such a good wine in my life. It's so satisfying. Tell me quickly. No matter how much it costs, I'll buy it as much as I can. A judge hurriedly shouted. Qin Chonglin also quickly said, Yeah, Old Du, tell me quickly, where did you buy this wine? I want to buy it too. This wine is not cheap. A bottle costs 18,888 yuan. Do you really want to buy it? Du Kuan grinned. We're all wine lovers. Let alone 18888. I'll buy it even if it costs 18,888 yuan, said Qin Chonglin without hesitation. Me too. The others also shouted one after another. Du Kuan shook his head and said with a smile, Even if you give so much money, I'm afraid the seller won't sell it to you now. However, I can tell you where the counter that sells this god's nectar is. Counter number 0246, you go there. Qin Chonglin hurriedly put down the empty cup in his hand and strode outside. As for the other 5 people, they also jogged outside. At counter number 0246, Kongxia hung up the phone with a happy expression on her face. Under the astonished expression of Su Quan and the others, she quickly ran out of the counter and ran toward the entrance of the wine-tasting conference venue. Strange, what's wrong with Chief Kong? Who called Chief Kong? To actually make her lose her composure like this? Strange, strange. Su Quan seemed to realize something amidst their discussion. He secretly guessed inwardly. Could it be that Tan Xiu came? Perhaps only he can make Chief Kong lose her composure like this, right? Outside the venue's entrance, with a wry smile, Tan Xiu looked at the 4 security guards who stopped him. He spent a lot of words, but the 4 of them didn't let him go in no matter what. In desperation, he had to call Kongxia. After returning to Shanghai from Guangyang, he just went back to put away his luggage, took a bath, and changed into clean clothes. Then he hurried here because he was concerned about the wine-tasting conference. Boss. With a fragrant wind, Kongxia appeared in front of Tan Xiu with a happy expression. After seeing Kongxia, the 4 security guards' complexion slightly stagnated. Although they had seen Kongxia before, they were still shocked by her soul-stirring beauty when they saw her again. I don't have an entry pass, so they won't let me in, said Tan Xiu with a smile. I'm afraid I can only ask you to take me in. Kongxia looked at the 4 security guards and said with a smile, Hello. He's our company's boss, so he should be able to go in, right? Yes, yes. Seeing Kong Xia talking to him, one of the security guards immediately nodded in flattery. Kong Xia showed him a charming smile again, and then made a gesture to Tan Xiao. "Boss, let's go in." Tan Xiao smiled in response. After entering, he asked, "How's the progress of the wine tasting conference? I just got off the plane and rushed over here. Today is the promotion day for the counter, and tomorrow is the official wine tasting conference. The price of our god's nectar is too high. Many people have been laughing at us for most of the morning. 10,000 a bottle. Of course it's very high," said Tan Xiao with a smile. Kong Xia stared blankly and asked with a confused expression, "Boss, our god's nectar isn't 10,000 a bottle. Didn't I tell you before?" After the group's high-level discussion, the price is set at 18,888 yuan a bottle. What? Tan Xiao stared blankly and suddenly recalled something. He patted his head and said with a wry smile, "I'll compensate you. A few days ago, I was in a restaurant in Shanghai and had a drink with some friends. I told them that it's 10,000 a bottle. In the end, they wanted to order a batch of wine from our winery." Kong Xia couldn't help laughing and said, "It's all right. Since they're your friends, it's normal for them to be cheaper. However, we can't set this precedent again in the future." "It's fine if it's 10,000 a bottle," said Tan Xiao helplessly. "I even gave them a discount." Cough cough. Kong Xia was choked by Tan Xiao's words. She looked at Tan Xiao with an expression of being at a loss, whether she had to cry or laugh. Then she curiously asked, "Boss, are you regretting it?" Tan Xiao forced a smile and said, "It's more than regretful. I regret it so much that my intestines turn green. Damn it, the price is directly reduced by more than half. Forget it, forget it. I can't give face to those so-called friends later. It's all money. It's a lot of money. They haven't contacted me yet, so you don't have to worry about it. If we wait until our god's nectar hits the market and they know our price, they will think that you're more generous and worthy to be friends with." Tan Xiao shook his head with a wry smile. That night, apart from Miao Wentong, how could the others be considered as friends? They were the ones who had taken advantage of this bargain. While speaking, the duo returned to the vicinity of counter 0246. "Huh? What's going on?" Kong Xia's footsteps instantly halted. She looked at the counter that was surrounded by people and suddenly revealed a bit of confusion. "Are those people surrounding our counter?" Tan Xiao asked. "Yes." Kong Xia nodded. "When I just came out to greet you, our counter was deserted. How come there are so many people surrounding it in such a short time?" "Let's go and find out the reason," said Tan Xiao. Before the duo squeezed into the crowd, they heard Su Quan's voice coming out from inside. "Ladies and gentlemen, our god's nectar is really not for sale. Besides, we only brought 4 bottles. Our general manager just gave 1 bottle away, and the remaining 3 bottles will be used tomorrow. So I'm sorry. If you want to buy it, wait for our exclusive stores in Shanghai, and even in major cities in the country to open in a few days. Please go to our store to buy it." In the innermost part, Qin Chonglin forced a smile and said, "Little brother, just sell me a bottle. There are 2 bottles of wine for tomorrow's competition, and I'll only buy 1. The god's nectar that old Du just gave us to taste is simply delicious. If I get addicted to wine and can't drink such a good wine, I'm afraid I won't be able to sleep when I go back." "Uncle, it's not that I don't want to sell it," said Su Quan. "I'm just an errand boy. Our general manager has gone out. Would you like to wait for me?" Under Tan Xiao's escort, Kong Xia squeezed to the innermost part and looked at the people surrounding the counter. After entering the counter with Tan Xiao, she asked, "What's the situation?" Upon seeing Tan Xiao, Su Quan's eyes suddenly lit up and he quickly said, "Chief Kong, they want to buy our god's nectar. They even said that they will buy as much as we have now." Kong Xia looked at Qin Chonglin and the others and said with a smile, "Ladies and gentlemen, our company's people have just made it very clear. Everyone, please go back. It is expected that our magnificent Tang Corporation will hold a press conference a few days later. After the press conference, 50 exclusive stores of God's Nectar in 25 cities across the country will open at the same time. At that time, I hope you will come to our exclusive stores to support us. I'm really sorry. The reason why I haven't been able to break out in the past few days is because of my poor health. On the other hand, Quiet Knight is the president of the Chongqing Online Writers Association. Recently, the Municipal Writers Association will hold a general committee meeting, so all kinds of preparations are quite busy. Let Quiet Knight rest for a few days. I'll definitely break out on Sunday. Chapter 367. Standing behind the counter, Tan Xiu looked at the expectant faces of Qin Chonglin and the others, as well as the surprised faces of many onlookers. He was very satisfied. Although he didn't know why Qin Chonglin and the others were scrambling to buy God's nectar, he believed that these people were not hired by Tan Xiu. Chief Kong, please make an exception for me. I'll buy a bottle now. We only need 2 bottles for tomorrow's wine tasting conference. In any case, you're keeping this bottle, so why don't you sell it to me? I'll pay double. No, I'll pay 10 times the price. Old brother Du Kuan got a bottle from you, and we all tasted it. It's truly a delicacy. I don't want to drink any other wine after drinking your God's nectar. Qin Chonglin said. Uncle, it's not that I don't want to sell it. Kong Xia forced a smile. You see, besides you, the others also want to buy it. I'm afraid they won't be happy if I sell it to you. Therefore, for the sake of fairness, you should wait until the end of the wine tasting conference and the opening of our exclusive store. At that time, you can buy it. Qin Chonglin looked at the others and whispered to them. Then he looked up and said, Chief Kong, we've discussed it. You sell us a bottle and we'll drink it together tonight. The price is still as I said, 10 times the price. What do you think? Kong Xia pondered for a moment before she nodded and said, Since you really like it, then I can't charge you more. The price is still 18,888 yuan per bottle. Pay the bill and take 1 bottle. All right. Qin Chonglin didn't hesitate to take out his wallet. To his surprise, there were only a few thousand yuan in cash. The other 5 also took out their wallets and quickly pooled 18,900 yuan. Kong Xia didn't want to charge more, so she gave them 12 yuan in change. Everyone, if you really like the God's nectar produced by our magnificent Tang Corporation, I hope you can help us promote it. Although fragrant wine needs no dark alley, but with your help in promoting it, the God's nectar can enter the domestic market as soon as possible and bring us benefits. Kong Xia said with a smile. Qin Chonglin nodded. He turned around and raised the God's nectar in his hand and loudly said, I'm one of the judges of this wine tasting conference and the vice president of the Chinese Wine Industry Association. The 5 people beside me are also the judges of this year's wine tasting conference. We were fortunate enough to taste the God's nectar in advance. The taste was very mellow. It was the best wine we had ever tasted. I hope everyone can help promote it. It's definitely worth it to buy it for 18,888 yuan. Hua! The onlookers immediately boiled up and stared at the bottle of God's nectar in his hand with shocked expressions. Today, those who could come to the wine tasting conference were all people who had a deep understanding of the wine industry. Most of them knew Qin Chonglin's identity, and they also knew that this old man had a fair and just attitude, which was why he was able to become a judge of the wine tasting conference for 6 consecutive years. If someone else had said this, they might not have believed it. However, Qin Chonglin's words convinced countless people. Moreover, there were 5 judges from the wine tasting conference. They had tasted countless wines and had a deep understanding of each one. Since they all agreed that God's nectar was a rare wine in the world, and it was absolutely true. Looks like a dark horse has appeared in this year's wine tasting conference. I'm really curious about the taste of this God's nectar. My curiosity was piqued by the judges' words and their expressions. How delicious is this God's nectar that they all agree that it's rare in the world? I want to buy a bottle to taste. Unfortunately, there are only 2 bottles left. When the magnificent Tang Corporation's exclusive store opens, I'll definitely rush there to buy some and taste it on the spot. If it's really as the judges said, that it's a rare wine in the world, I'll definitely order a lot of it. To be recognized by so many judges and given such high praise, this has never happened in the previous wine tasting conferences. There are 7 judges from the Wine Industry Association in every wine tasting conference. If the other judge is also full of praise like them, I'll order a lot of it now. Didn't you hear it just now? These 6 judges have tasted God's nectar. Moreover, they learned about the existence of God's nectar from the 7th judge, Elder Du Kuan. That's right. Along with the sounds of discussion, a middle-aged man struggled to squeeze to the innermost side. He looked at Kong Xia and said, Chief Kong, I want to order 200 boxes of your God's nectar. I'll order 200 boxes. I'll also order 200 boxes. Another man was unwilling to be outdone. Kong Xia was at a loss whether she had to cry or laugh as she looked at them. She then said with a smile, I'm really sorry. Our magnificent Tang Corporation doesn't order God's nectar from the outside, and only sells it in our exclusive store. If you want to buy it, you can only buy it from our store. Furthermore, due to the limited production of God's nectar, each customer can't order more than 2 boxes, that is 12 bottles. The man stared blankly and exclaimed, Are you doing business? Some people want to buy your wine. Yet you even set a limit? What kind of joke is this? It's our boss's decision. We have no right to make the decision, and can only execute it. Kong Xia said with a smile. Chief Kong, who's the magnificent Tang Corporation's boss? Qin Chonglin asked with a puzzled expression. I'm sorry. Our boss doesn't like to show his face in public, so he told us not to expose his identity. Kong Xia said with a smile. Your magnificent Tang Corporation is really... Ha! Qin Chonglin forced a smile. Why do I feel that the name Magnificent Tang Corporation is somewhat familiar? I seem to have heard of it somewhere. Many people around him also looked confused upon hearing this, because many of them felt that the name Magnificent Tang Corporation was somewhat familiar. I remember now. The Magnificent Tang Corporation. The famous gold manager, Kong Xia, is the general manager of the Magnificent Tang Corporation. You're Chief Kong? A middle-aged man exclaimed. In an instant, everyone's eyes were focused on Kong Xia. Some people had a curious look on their faces, while others had a shocked look on their faces. I never thought that I'm so famous that I can be recognized in the wine-tasting conference. Kong Xia said with a smile. That's right. I'm Kong Xia. As for whether I'm the famous gold manager or not, I don't know. Qin Chonglin was surprised and said, No wonder. No wonder I feel that the name Magnificent Tang Corporation is somewhat familiar. It turns out that this is the company that Chief Kong is working for now. I used to think that this company was established by Chief Kong herself, but it turns out that she has a boss. Kong Xia inadvertently glanced at Tan Xiao, who had a faint smile on his face. She then said with a charming smile, I have no choice. I was born to work for others. But now it's even worse. I followed this boss, but he directly became a hands-off shopkeeper and pushed everything to me. Isn't this a good thing? Qin Chonglin laughed aloud. Capable people do more work. This shows that your boss has a discerning eye for gold. He won't let a talent like you be buried and wasted. Speaking of which, all of us are really envious of him. Shortly after exchanging greetings, Qin Chonglin and the others dispersed. But many liquor wholesalers came after hearing the news. Even the people in charge of the wine industry who came to attend the wine tasting conference also came to see the God's nectar. Many of them wanted to place an order at this time, but Kong Xia declined them one by one. Some observant people had quietly observed that Kong Xia had tactfully declined more than 20 liquor wholesalers in just over an hour. It was nearly noon. Kong Xia smiled and sat opposite Tan Xiao and said, Boss, it's almost lunchtime. Do we want to have a working meal here? Or go out to eat? Do you want to reward us? Let's have a working meal here, Tan Xiao said with a smile. I'll book a restaurant tonight and treat you to a big meal. I'll reward you then. Su Quan leaned on the wall at the side and grinned. Big Boss Tang, I really admire you more and more now. Why didn't I find you so capable when you were a kid? Had I known it earlier, I would have hugged your thighs and followed behind your ass. Fuck off. Tan Xiao scolded with a smile. You're not a demigod, kid. How can you know what will happen in the future? Anyways, it's not too late now. As long as you work hard, I guarantee that you'll have a good life with me in the future. Su Quan grinned and said, Then it's a deal. You'll definitely be satisfied with my performance in the future. I'm very satisfied now, Tan Xiao said with a smile. Kongxia, after we return to Star City, send someone to order 2 houses. Each of them is worth 2 million yuan. Give one to Su Quan and Su Ben. It's their welfare. Don't. Su Quan quickly waved his hand and said, Tan Xiao, we may be brothers, but you don't need to give us special treatment. I'm fine with it. If you really give it to me, I'll gladly accept it. But don't you know Big Brother Ben's character? He won't accept it if you give it to him for free. If he doesn't accept it, how can I have the nerve to accept it? So you can ask Chief Kong to raise our salaries and give us welfare. Just forget about the house. Tan Xiao stared blankly for a moment. He recalled that Su Ben was an honest and stubborn person. He immediately forced a smile and said, You're right, Big Brother Ben. Forget it. Kongxia, did you hear Su Quan's words? If they perform well in the future, give them more rewards. No problem. Kongxia could feel the brotherhood between Tan Xiao and Su Quan, so she nodded with a smile. After lunch, Tan Xiao continued to stay here. Although he was the boss and there was no need for him here, he had nothing else to do anyway, so he stayed here to see the situation. He accompanied Kongxia and Su Quan and chatted with them, which made him happy. This afternoon, the magnificent Tang Corp's God's nectar had been spread like wildfire, and everyone knew about it. All the guests who came to the wine tasting conference had come here. There were even a dozen people who wanted to place an order on the spot, but Kongxia declined them. However, through today's situation, whether it was Kongxia, Su Quan, or Tan Xiao, all of them were clear about one thing. The reputation of the God's nectar had been established. Chapter 368. Night fell. In the bustling metropolis of Shanghai, tens of thousands of lights were lit up. At the Everlasting Feast Hall's branch in Shanghai, Qinan was quietly leaning on the counter, lazily fiddling with the mobile phone in her hand. Chief Qi, someone is looking for you. A waiter came over with a plate. Who's looking for me? Qinan casually looked up and asked. The waiter pointed to the back and said, It's that boy. He said he wants a private room, but all the private rooms in our restaurant are full. Qinan looked over and her expression slightly changed. A bright smile appeared on her gorgeous face. After seeing that the person was Tan Xiao, she then said to the waiter, Immediately clean up the VIP lounge on the 4th floor. Prepare the best wine after the wine, and prepare the dishes according to the VIP treatment. Go quickly. VIP? The waiter was stunned. He turned to look at Tan Xiao and the others with a surprised expression, and then trotted away. Qinan came to the front of Tang Xiao and the others with a smile. Although she had clearly seen Kongxia's stunning appearance and was somewhat surprised inside, she still smiled and said, Welcome, boss. Do you need a private room? Qinan, arrange a VIP lounge on the 4th floor for us, Tan Xiao said with a smile. They're all our people. Qinan stared blankly for a moment before immediately replying with a smile. I've already sent someone to prepare it, boss. Tan Xiao nodded with a smile and said, Let me introduce you. This is Kongxia, the general manager of the magnificent Tang Corporation. This is Su Quan, my brother who grew up with me and now works in the magnificent Tang Corporation. She's Qinan, the manager of the Everlasting Feast Hall's branch in Shanghai. Hello, Kongxia. Qinan extended her hand and said with a smile, You can call me Sister Nan Nan since we're on the same side. How about I call you Xiaxia? This? Kongxia hesitated for a moment before shaking hands with Qinan. She then nodded and looked at Tan Xiao and asked with a confused expression, What's going on, boss? I'm the magnificent Tang Corporation's boss, and also the Everlasting Feast Hall's boss, Tan Xiao said with a smile. It's that simple. Kongxia was surprised. Are you really the Everlasting Feast Hall's boss? How was this possible? As far as I know, the Everlasting Feast Hall has been established for decades. You. Tan Xiao waved his hand to interrupt her words and said with a faint smile, There are some things that you are not clear about now. Perhaps you will know in the future. All right, let's not talk about this. This time, our God's nectar was able to cause a sensation in the wine tasting conference, indicating that it will soon become famous. I'll celebrate your victory in advance. Seeing that Tan Xiao no longer said anything, Kang Xia also refrained from asking any further. To her, being able to be together with Tan Xiao was already a pleasant surprise. The VIP lounge on the 4th floor. Under Qi Nan's lead, they entered the spacious VIP lounge. Su Quan's eyes widened as he sized up the interior. He then came to the window and looked at the bustling street outside. He couldn't help but sigh. This is too luxurious. I've been to many restaurants, but this is the first time I've been to such a luxurious restaurant. This is the VIP lounge of our everlasting feast hall, said Qi Nan with a smile. Except for a few VIPs of the everlasting feast hall, as well as our own people, outsiders are not allowed to come here. It seems that we've taken advantage of Big Boss, Su Quan said with a smile. At this time, the employees of the magnificent Tang Corporation were also a bit shocked. Although they knew that Tan Xiao was the big boss of the magnificent Tang Corporation, they knew very little about this hands-off boss. Now they finally understood that it was not that their big boss didn't care about the company's situation, but that his business was not limited to the magnificent Tang Corporation. He was simply too busy. Have a seat. Tan Xiao waved his hand and said with a smile. Kang Xia quickly pulled a chair for Tan Xiao, and then sat next to Tan Xiao with a smile. Qi Nan didn't take a seat, but said, Boss, Elder Ji has arrived in Shanghai. She didn't inform you because she learned that you went to Guangyang a few days ago. You see. When will you have the time to see her? Tan Xiao thought for a moment and said, Tell her to wait. The person I'm waiting for hasn't arrived in Shanghai yet. I'll contact her when she arrives. All right. Qi Nan nodded with a faint smile. Quickly, the everlasting feast hall's fine wine and dishes were delivered one after another. The fragrant aroma of the dishes and rice made everyone's appetite whet. This meal lasted for a full 2 hours before it ended. During the banquet, Kang Xia drank a little bit of wine. Her beautiful face was flushed red, making her look even more lovable and adorable. Boss, can you accompany me to stroll around Shanghai's night scene? After leaving the restaurant, Kang Xia followed Tan Xiao and whispered. All right. Tan Xiao didn't refuse. Kang Xia was his trusted confidant, so he could satisfy her request. After sending Su Quan and the others away, Tan Xiao looked at Qi Nan and said with a smile, Go back and busy yourself. I'll take Kang Xia to stroll around. Qi Nan looked at Kang Xia with a strange expression and asked with a smile, Boss, how about you drive my car away? No need. Tan Xiao waved his hand and said, I've drunk some wine. Although driving is not a problem, it's still drunk driving. Let's take a taxi. All right. Qi Nan replied and turned around to walk toward the restaurant. Tan Xiao then looked at Kang Xia and smilingly asked, Where do you want to go? When I first arrived in Shanghai, I strolled around with my classmates. It's a metropolis after all, so it's very good. How about going to the Bund? Kang Xia laughed. I want to see the night scene of Huangpu River. That's right, it would be even better if we can take a passenger boat to visit Huangpu River at night. All right. Tan Xiao nodded. After stopping a taxi, the duo quickly arrived at the Huangpu River passenger boat ticket office. After buying the boat tickets, they accompanied Kang Xia to tour the Huangpu River before they left the boat and returned to the shore. Amidst the crowd, Kang Xia and Tan Xiao walked side by side. Finally, Kang Xia hesitated for a moment before she grabbed Tan Xiao's wrist. Tan Xiao glanced at her and lightly smiled. You seem to have a question that you haven't asked yet. You also want to know how I became the Everlasting Feast Hall's boss? What I want to ask is not how you became the Everlasting Feast Hall's boss, but that you and Qi Nan seem to have an unusual relationship, said Kang Xia with a smile. Tan Xiao stared blankly for a moment before he couldn't help laughing and said, Are you suspecting that we have a relationship between a man and a woman? No, said Kang Xia. How should I say it? You two seem to be very close, and she respects you very much. That kind of respect doesn't seem to be superficial, but comes from the bottom of her heart. Even though she hides it very well in front of you, she occasionally reveals a trace of flattery, which I can still observe. The smile on Tan Xiao's face slowly disappeared. He stood at the Huangpu River's bank, overlooking the reflection of the lights on the river's surface and calmly said, Kong Xia, you're very observant. But didn't you notice that her attitude toward you is somewhat unusual? I did. It's not like she's seeing me for the first time. Instead, it's like we're old friends, said Kong Xia. That's what I can't figure out. Tang Xiu turned around and looked at her face. He looked at her sparkling eyes that were rippling with a watery halo and seriously said, How's the cultivation technique I imparted to you? I haven't sensed the kind of aura you mentioned, said Kong Xia. You haven't sensed that kind of aura, but she has cultivated true qi, said Tan Xiu. Although she has yet to embark on the real cultivation path, she may be able to learn it in the future. All the core members of the Everlasting Feast Hall are our own people. What I said about our own people is that my orders are above everything else. Even if I order them to commit suicide in front of me, they will immediately carry it out. Kong Xia was shaken inwardly. She looked at Tan Xiu in disbelief and asked, Boss, are there still such loyal people in this world? They're different, said Tan Xiu. Their lives don't just belong to them. Kong Xia shook her head and said, I don't agree with you, boss. Their lives are in their hands, and their future path is also theirs to walk. How could it be like what you said? Their path has actually come to an end. Tan Xiu interrupted her and confidently said, Unless they grow old in obscurity, they must follow my footsteps with vigor. I'll give them their future path, and their lives must be loyal to me. You'll give it to them? Kong Xia was surprised. How? Did you forget what I told you when I taught you the cultivation technique? Tang Xiu chuckled. Did you forget what I told you when I taught you the cultivation technique? Becoming stronger can prolong your life. If they can cultivate to the realm I'm looking forward to, their future life will be very long. Not only them, but you as well. Ever since you learned the cultivation method I taught you, your life has been mine. Kong Xia was silent for a moment before she suddenly smiled and said, My soul and body are yours. Ugh! Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment. He suddenly recalled the scene of ecstasy with Kong Xia, and his lower abdomen suddenly turned hot. Kong Xia, Tan Xiu opened his mouth. Kong Xia raised her jade-like finger, and gently covered Tan Xiu's lips. She chuckled and said, I know. You said that you can't give me the identity of a normal husband and wife. But I don't mind it. I'll be satisfied as long as I can occupy a place in your heart. Tan Xiu sighed inwardly. He reached out to hug her shoulder and said, Let's not talk about this. Let's go to other places. Kong Xia nodded slightly and didn't speak again. A strange light flashed in her eyes, and no one knew what she was thinking. After a long while, Kong Xia then whispered, I know there's a shopping mall nearby. How about going with me to buy some clothes? All right, Tan Xiu said with a smile. Aside from buying clothes, is there anything else in that shopping mall? I'm going to buy a laptop. People will say that you're illiterate if you don't know anything about computers these days. You don't know anything about computers? Kong Xia asked in astonishment. Tan Xiu said, I can use it for simple operations but not for difficult ones. I used to have computer classes in junior high and senior high school, but the things he learned at that time were all very shallow things. As a matter of fact, I haven't been using a smartphone for a long time. Today is the last day of quiet night's rest. Tomorrow, we'll start courting death. Chapter 369. It's all right. Kong Xia said with a smile. I can teach you later if you want to learn something more difficult. By the way, are you going to buy a computer to play games? Or use it for work? Many laptops have different systems and configurations, so I need to know what you want to use it for. Study and work, Tan Xiu said. Kong Xia made an okay gesture and pulled Tan Xiu toward the nearby shopping mall. Shopping. It was a woman's nature. Although accompanying women to go shopping was the dream of countless single men, Tan Xiu really didn't like shopping. In the past, whenever he wanted to buy something, he would directly find out the place to buy it, and then directly go there to buy it. However, Kong Xia was his right-hand woman, so he would try his best to satisfy her. Thus, Tan Xiu would never let her down. Have you been here before? I've been here twice, but I didn't find such a big shopping mall here. As the two entered the mall, Tan Xiao looked at the surrounding shops and the dazzling lineup of goods, and asked curiously. I've been here at least 10 times, Kong Xia said with a smile. Tan Xiao suddenly understood and said with a smile. Shopping is a woman's nature, and it seems you're no exception. Just buy whatever you like. Although I'm a thrifty person, I'm waiting to bleed tonight in order to reward you. Kong Xia was pleasantly surprised. Did you say that? You're not allowed to go back on your words. Tan Xiao nodded and said, a gentleman's word is as good as a whip. A smile hung on the corner of Kong Xia's mouth as she repeatedly nodded. Suddenly, her expression slightly stagnated and her brows furrowed in an instant. A look of disgust flashed in her eyes. Let's go there. Kong Xia pulled Tang Xiao's arm and walked toward another direction. Miss Tang, please wait. A hearty laughter came from not far away. Immediately after, two young men ran over. Tan Xiao and Kong Xia stopped. Kong Xia forced a smile and said, Boss, we've run into trouble. This fly is a bit special. A fly? Tan Xiao was stunned. What surprised him even more was that the person running toward him turned out to be someone he knew. Miss Kong, I didn't expect to meet you here. My sister mentioned you to me yesterday. I heard that you're coming to Shanghai for some business, so I have to entertain you well. Li Zhen still maintained his elegant demeanor with a bright smile on his handsome face. His eyes were fixated on Kong Xia, and he didn't even spare a glance at Tan Xiao who was standing beside Kong Xia. Kong Xia said, Help me thank your sister for her kindness. I'm here on business this time. If time permits, I'll have a gathering with her. But if time is tight, then there's nothing I can do. Also, we still have something to do, so we'll take our leave first. Saying that, she grabbed Tan Xiao and was about to leave. Li Zhen hastily called out, Miss Kong, it's rare to meet you here, let me treat you. Suddenly, his words came to an abrupt halt. Because at this moment he glanced at Tan Xiao. But this one glance made all the words he wanted to say swallow back into his stomach. Tan Xiao indifferently looked at Li Zhen and slowly said, There's a saying that enemies often cross each other's path. I didn't believe it before, but now I do. Let me give you a piece of advice. Kong Xia is my woman, so don't mess around her if you don't have any serious business. You're on your own now. Li Zhen's expression turned particularly unsightly. He looked at the astonished Tan Xiao and angrily said, Surname Tang, how come you're everywhere? Don't think that I have to walk around you just because of our agreement. Believe it or not, Tan Xiao interrupted him and lightly asked, Do you believe it or not? Do you want to force me to deal with you? Or do you want to force me to deal with your Li family? You're not young anymore, so you should grow your brain. Don't court disaster for your Li family. After saying that, Tan Xiao grabbed Kong Xia's hand and walked toward the distance. Li Zhen's expression constantly changed. Finally, he looked at the back of Tan Xiao and Kong Xia as they left. An unwilling expression was revealed in his eyes. He had yet to investigate Tan Xiao's identity and background, so he didn't dare to act rashly. Xiaoya, call Yu Ji and tell him that you've seen Tan Xiao in this mall. Yu Ji's hatred for Tan Xiao is very strong. I'm afraid he'll rush here to retaliate. Li Zhen loosened his fist as he thought of a way to kill with a borrowed knife. He immediately whispered, All right. The young man nodded. On the second floor of the mall, at the electronic mall, Tan Xiao calmly held Kong Xia's hand and asked, From what you just said, you should know Li Zhen's sister, right? The moment Kong Xia's hand was grabbed by Tan Xiao, the smile on her face never faded. Especially when Tan Xiao said that Kong Xia was his woman. It made her feel as though she had eaten honey. Upon hearing his inquiry, Kong Xia replied with a smile, Yeah, I know his sister. You just said that fly. Is he pursuing you? Tan Xiao said with a smile. There are many men who pursue me, but I don't like them. Kong Xia laughed. I don't think there's any man better than you in the world. Boss, you and Li Zhen seem to know each other, no? Did you have a conflict with him before? It's just a small conflict. It's nothing, Tan Xiao said with a smile. Tell me, what's going on? Asked Kong Xia curiously. Tan Xiao glanced at her and said, When I first came to Shanghai, I had a meal with several friends in the Everlasting Feast Hall. Since I was bored, I followed Qi Nan to the neighboring city to participate in an underground car race. At that time, my opponents were Li Jun and a professional racer he invited from Hong Kong. In the end, I won. Not only did he lose money, but he also promised me a condition. That is, he must stay far away from me whenever I appear. Another thing is that he and a classmate of mine have a little conflict. They had a quarrel a few days ago because they met each other. One of his followers was taught a lesson by me for speaking rudely. Kong Xia suddenly understood and said with a smile, "The Li family is quite a powerful family in Shanghai. Although they're not even in the top 10, they're still quite good. Their family business has been flourishing since Li Jun's sister, Li Dan, took over. On the contrary, this Li Jun is a typical second-generation nouveau riche. He's a good-for-nothing character that even his sister is worried about." "I knew he's a good-for-nothing the first time I saw him," Tan Xiao said with a smile. "This kind of person has a common problem, that is, he exudes the aura of money. Even if I don't know much about luxury jewelry, I dare say that his outfit is worth tens of thousands of yuan." Kong Xia couldn't help laughing and said, "You're wrong, boss. Li Jun's outfit is worth at least hundreds of thousands yuan. That's not counting the Dan-Seaton watch he wears on his wrist, which is worth more than 1,000,000 yuan. It seems that I have a lot of knowledge to popularize," Tan Xiao said with a smile. "Well, I'll teach you if you serve me well tonight," Kong Xia said with a laugh. "I'm an expert in this field." Hee hee. Upon hearing the word serve, Tan Xiao couldn't help but recall the night of ecstasy. He was a man with a normal physiology, so he naturally had that kind of need. However, he was a casual person and didn't like to be restricted. Coupled with the woman who had betrayed him in the immortal world, it caused him to have a resistance toward women deep inside his heart. "If you want it, just do it. Why do you care so much?" This voice sounded inside Tan Xiao's heart. The way he looked at Kong Xia also changed a bit. Next, Kong Xia took Tan Xiao to look at several laptops in the electronic mall, and finally bought a laptop that Tan Xiao liked. It had the highest configuration, and cost more than 5 digits. Immediately after, the duo took their laptop bags and went to the 4th, 5th, and 6th floors to stroll around. The clothing specialty stores in this shopping mall were all high-end stores. Many of them were world-famous brands, and the prices made Tan Xiao somewhat helpless. As a result, Kong Xia bought him several sets in the name of buying clothes. She even bought a lot of shoes, socks, and underwear. As for herself, she strolled around for a long time, yet she didn't buy anything. When it came to the checkout, it was Kong Xia who rushed to pay the bill every time and simply didn't let him pay out of his own pocket. After a dispute, it finally ended in failure, so Tan Xiao just let her be. There's still a men's clothing store in front. Let's go to the women's clothing store," Tan Xiao quickly said after seeing that Kong Xia still wanted to buy clothes for him. Kong Xia looked at the bag in Tan Xiao's hand. She then nodded with a reluctant expression and said with a smile, "Boss, do you know that your figure is like a natural clothes hanger? You look good in any clothes you wear." Tan Xiao forced a smile and said, "Will you die if you don't flatter me? Give me a children's clothing. I guarantee I won't be able to wear it." "Ha ha ha." Kong Xia laughed again and again. Half an hour later, when Kong Xia finally picked a beautiful dress, Tan Xiao paid the bill and was pulled downstairs by Kong Xia. "You're not shopping anymore? You only bought one." Tan Xiao was surprised. "One is enough," Kong Xia said with a smile. "I don't lack clothes. Although I'm pulling you to go shopping, it's better to say that you accompany me to go shopping. It doesn't matter if I buy clothes or not." "All right, let's go then," Tan Xiao said with a smile. At the entrance of the commercial building, Yuji stood at the street corner not far away, leaning against the wall and smoking a cigarette. A chilling light flashed in his eyes as he constantly glanced at the building's entrance. Behind him, there were 4 strong men with bulging waists, all carrying knives. "Qingyi, remember me well. You can't take his life, but you must make him bleed. It's best if you cut the tendons in his hands." Yuji turned his head and glanced at a big man with a golden chain behind him as he spoke in a deep voice. "Young master, you can put your heart at ease. That brat dared to offend you, young master, you." He's courting death. I'll cut the tendons in his hands and feet, so that young master you can vent your anger. Yuji nodded and said, although there are a lot of people outside the building, you don't need to worry about it. Just hurry up and there won't be any problems. If there really is a problem, I have acquaintances in the Public Security Bureau who can bail you out when the time comes. Brothers and sisters, cast your recommendation votes and monthly votes. Starting tomorrow, Jingye will start to pay the debt of monthly votes and updates. Chapter 370. At the entrance of the building, just as Tan Xiao came out with Kong Xia, he found that the surrounding situation was a bit strange. Some malicious gazes were constantly lingering on him. With just a few glances, he found at least 20 youths in strange outfits, dressed like hooligans, slowly approaching him. Just follow me closely. Don't be afraid no matter what happens. Tan Xiao squeezed Kong Xia's hand and said with a calm expression, what's going on? Kong Xia asked with a confused expression. Tan Xiao pouted and lightly said, some insignificant people want to find trouble with us. I'm afraid this matter is related to that surnamed Li. Li Zhen? Kong Xia looked at the direction where Tang Xiao's mouth was pouting. She immediately saw 4 or 5 youths dressed like hooligans staring at them. There were also a lot of youths dressed in the same attire, surrounding them from other directions. Boss, we're in public now. It's a very bustling block. They shouldn't dare to be too arrogant, right? Kong Xia asked in a low voice with some fear inside her heart. They're not the main culprits, Tan Xiao said indifferently. There's someone behind them, so it's possible for them to act in such an environment. So just stay by my side. I don't care about these hooligans and hooligans. In a flash, Tan Xiao released his spiritual sense and clearly observed everyone's every move within a radius of 200 to 300 meters. Huh. Tan Xiao furrowed his brows because he found an acquaintance. It was the guy who was with Li Zhen at the entrance of Demon City University, and spoke rudely to him, and got beaten up by him. Furthermore, he observed with his spiritual sense that the 4 big men behind that guy were also quickly rushing toward his location. Huh. Tan Xiao once again found an acquaintance. It was Li Zhen, whom he and Kong Xia had just bumped into, and the gloating youth next to him. The two of them were not with the guy he had just beaten but were hiding in the window on the 3rd floor of the opposite building. Poor guy, he must have been used. The thought flashed in Tang Xiao's mind. He then took out his mobile phone and said, Qinan, investigate the details of the Li family in Shanghai. The more detailed the better. Since Kong Xia is a good sister of the Li family's eldest miss, Li Dan, we can go visit the Li family. In the Everlasting Feast Hall's branch in Shanghai, Qinan was watching the 2 arowanas in the bathtub with a bored expression. She received a call from Tan Xiao and could hear the chill in his voice. Her eyes immediately lit up and she said aloud, Boss, please wait for my news. At the latest, I'll be able to investigate the Li family's situation in half an hour. Are you coming now? Or should I go look for you? Tan Xiao said, I'll find you later. All right. Qi Nanqing hung up the phone in a hurry. Immediately after, she made one call after another, and the Everlasting Feast Hall's intelligence system was fully activated. All the core members of the Everlasting Feast Hall began to gather information about the Li family in Shanghai through various channels and networks. On the bustling street, Tan Xiao looked at the young thugs surrounding him. His eyes finally locked on Cheng Yi and the 3 big men around him, especially Cheng Yi and the man on his right. Both of them had guns on their waists instead of knives. Before we start, can you tell me the name of the guy in the corner of the street? Tan Xiao looked at Cheng Yi and lightly asked. Cheng Yi stared blankly for a moment. Then he raised his brows and sneered. Brat, you're quite powerful, aren't you? You even know that young master you wants to clean you up. Since you've found out, then you must have heard of the Shanghai Media Group, right? Young master you is the young master of the media group. If you know what's good for you, why don't you come with us? I thought you'd do it here, Tan Xiao said with a smile. No problem. I'll go with you. It's best if we find a secluded place. Am I right? The smile on Cheng Ye's face disappeared, and was replaced with a solemn expression. He looked at Tan Xiao's calm appearance and felt a bit apprehensive inside. Brat, what kind of gang are you from? Tan Xiao said with a chuckle. It seems you're not stupid. You know to ask about my background. However, Yuji sent you here, yet he doesn't dare to come. That means he's afraid of me. He's afraid of me, but you're not? You don't know me. Chengyi frowned. He subconsciously looked at the place where Yuji was hiding. After being silent for a while, he sneered and said, Brat, don't put on an act. Provoking young master you is your bad fate. Also, we won't touch the woman next to you. But tell her to be careful and not to take out things she shouldn't take, such as a mobile phone. Tan Xiao looked at Kong Xia and asked with a smile. Do you believe me? Kong Xia was indeed a bit worried. But seeing that the other party didn't rush to make a move and seemed to have a trace of fear, she immediately smiled and shook her head. Of course not. Boss, I saw the scene when you brought people to the Rising Dragon Martial School to pick a fight. Relying on these guys, I'm afraid they won't end up better than those people from the Rising Dragon Martial School. Boss, the Rising Dragon Martial School? Chengye's brows furrowed again. The dread he felt toward Tang Xiao at this moment increased a bit. He was able to mix in a metropolis like Shanghai. Naturally, he was not a fool. On the contrary, he was very smart. He knew that there were some people he could provoke, and some he couldn't afford to provoke. Otherwise, a disaster would befall him. Let's go. Let's talk somewhere else. Chengyi thought for a moment. He felt that he was scared and immediately felt a bit angry and ashamed. Lead the way. Tan Xiao calmly said. Not far from the street corner, Yuji frowned with an angry look on his face. His intention was to let Chengyi see Tan Xiao and immediately make a move, crippling Tan Xiao and then immediately withdraw. However, he unexpectedly chatted with Tan Xiao and didn't seem to want to make a move. A few minutes later, everyone came to a street that could be considered extremely quiet compared to the one they had just been on. Even Yuji cautiously followed them from behind. However, Yuji didn't notice that there were two sneaky figures behind them, staring at him, Chengyi, as well as Tan Xiao and the others. Brat, tell me, who the hell are you? Chengyi and the others came here with Tan Xiao and Kong Xia, but they still didn't rush to make a move. Being cautious by nature, he asked. Tan Xiao lightly said, You won't know my identity even if I tell you. If you're afraid, then get the hell out of here immediately. If you want to make a move, you can try. That's right, that brat Yuji has been secretly following us. If you don't dare to make a move now, tell him to come here. Chengyi frowned and glanced at the back, but he didn't find Yuji's figure. After pondering for a moment, he nodded to a big man beside him. Then, the big man immediately ran to the back. Soon after, the big man saw Yuji at the street corner. He ran to Yuji's side and respectfully said, Young master you, our boss wants to see you. Yuji's complexion slightly changed and asked in a deep voice, What's the situation? That surname Tang seems to have an unusual identity. Our boss is a bit afraid of him, said the big man. Also, that surname Tang also noticed that you're following us, so he wants you to see him. Yuji's complexion changed. He took a deep breath and strode over. What the hell are you doing, Chengyi? I told you to make a move, so why are you dawdling? Chengyi glanced at Tan Xiao and didn't say anything. You're Yuji, right? Tan Xiao lightly smiled. You're the young master of the Maida group, right? Yuji's complexion slightly changed and coldly said, How did you know? They told me. Tan Xiao lightly smiled. Yuji angrily glared at Chengyi. Yuji, let's talk about our matter. Tan Xiao waved his hand. You were like a dog that followed Li Jun at that time. You didn't feel the pain from being beaten by me, did you? Now you even dare to provoke me? You fucking court death. Yuji angrily shouted. Tan Xiao fiercely kicked Yuji, directly sending him flying 4 to 5 meters away. After his buttocks fell to the ground, he spurted out a mouthful of blood. At the side, Chengyi and his more than 20 men's complexion greatly changed. Chengyi didn't expect that this matter would actually involve Li Jun. It must be noted that Li Jun's identity and background were much stronger than Yuji's. But this guy in front of him didn't seem to be afraid of Li Jun at all. Where did he come from? He even dared to continuously beat Yuji? He even dared to oppose young Master Li Jun? Tan Xiu walked to the front of Yu Ji and gently kicked him with his foot. He lightly smiled and said, "Don't worry. My kick won't kill you. What I want to know is, did you send someone to watch me tonight? Or did Li Jun send you?" Yu Ji endured the uncomfortable feeling coming from his internal organs and angrily shouted, "This father and Li Jun have broken up. He is him, and I am me." Tan Xiu suddenly understood and smilingly said, "So, how did you know that I was in the mall just now? It's impossible for you to have sent someone to follow me. If you really did, I would have found it long ago. It seems that someone called you, right? Even if it's not Li Jun, it should be someone close to him." Yu Ji's complexion slightly changed as he angrily shouted, "How did you know?" "It's very obvious," Tan Xiu leisurely said. "I met Li Jun in the mall before. There was also a young man with him. If it weren't for them, I would have really admired your remarkable ability." Yu Ji's brows tightly furrowed. He pondered for a moment, and suddenly came to his senses. He struggled to crawl up from the ground, and wiped the blood on the corner of his mouth. He turned around and glanced around, shouting, "Li Jun, you fucking tricked me. I, Yu Ji, will sever all ties with you in the future. I won't let this matter end with you." Tang Xiu released his spiritual sense, and could clearly see that Li Jun and the young man were secretly hiding about 200 meters away. However, he didn't want to deal with Li Jun now. He would personally visit the Li family. If the Li family didn't restrain him, he would teach him a lesson in front of his parents. Today is the weekend. Quiet Night will stay at home and write at least 5 chapters. There's no upper limit. Brothers and sisters, please cheer up and vote for me. Chapter 371. Tan Xiu looked at Yu Ji with a bored expression. He really didn't feel like paying attention to such trivial matters. However, the feeling of being remembered by others was not a good one, just like Li Jun. Immediately, he looked at Yu Ji and lightly asked, "Let's not talk about Li Jun first. He can't run away. Let's talk about our matter first, shall we? You brought these people to deal with me. I'm not that easy to bully." Yu Ji retreated 2 steps and shouted at Cheng Yi, "Cheng Yi, why are you still staring blankly? Hit him. I want to see his blood. I want him to know how miserable his fate is if he hits me." Cheng Yi looked at Tan Xiu and said with a forced smile, "Young master Yu, please don't drag us into the grudges between you big shots, alright? This brother is not even afraid of Li Jun. We're just ants in his eyes. Please be merciful and spare us." Yu Ji nearly vomited blood after hearing Cheng Ye's words. Puffed. Kong Xia couldn't help but laugh while looking at Yu Ji's wonderful expression. At this moment, everyone looked at Kong Xia's flower-like smiling face and couldn't help but stare blankly. Tan Xiu held back his laughter as he looked at Cheng Yi and said, "You're very smart and cautious. No matter where or when, only cautious people can live longer. In fact, according to your behavior today, you can be spared from death, but you can't escape punishment. But you didn't want to make things difficult for her, so I'm in a good mood to spare you this time. Remember, don't provoke me later, else I won't mind letting you die." After saying that, his figure flashed and instantly appeared in front of Yu Ji. Even though he only used less than 5% of his strength, it was enough to make Yu Ji scream again and again. Finally, Tan Xiu stepped on Yu Ji's right wrist, causing him to squeal like a pig being butchered. He then kicked him to the side and lightly said, "This is your last chance. Think about the consequences of failing to retaliate before you deal with me next time. Your Yu family hee." Yu Ji angrily shouted, "What's so great about you knowing some martial arts? Don't be so arrogant, you'll suffer in the future." Tan Xiu shook his head and reached for his phone. After forcing Yu Ji to tell him the password, Tan Xiu found Li Jun's phone number. After writing it down, Tan Xiu threw the phone on Yu Ji's body and turned to leave. When Cheng Yi and the 20 or so subordinates saw how Tan Xiu beat up Yu Ji, a trace of fear arose in their hearts. However, what scared them the most was not the scene of Tan Xiu beating up Yu Ji, but Tan Xiu's ghost-like speed and the smile he had when he broke Yu Ji's right wrist. Ruthless character. He was definitely a ruthless character. Cheng Yi suddenly rejoiced in his heart, rejoicing that he did not make a move tonight. He watched as Tan Xiu and Kong Xia left until they could no longer be seen. Then he carefully accompanied Tan Xiu to Yu Ji's side, who was rolling on the ground. He propped him up from the ground and asked with concern, "Young Master Yu, are you all right? I'll take you to the hospital myself." "Fuck off." Yu Ji pushed Cheng Yi away with his left hand and angrily said with a smile, "Cheng Yi, big bro Cheng, you're really good. You betrayed me before, and now you're even pretending to care about me. Don't you feel disgusted? Scram. Scram as far as you can. I don't want to see you ever again." Cheng Ye's expression was a bit unsightly. No matter what, he was a respected figure in Shanghai's underground forces. If it wasn't for Yu Ji being the young master of the Yu family, he wouldn't even look at him. Moreover, there were so many brothers around. Being scolded by them made him lose his face. "Young Master Yu, we brothers are giving you face, so we're willing to stand up for you. But you're too insincere. I'm afraid that surname Tang's background is not worse than your Yu family, right? You want us to beat him? Isn't this the same as pushing us brothers into a pit of fire? I won't haggle over today's matter. And we won't spread the news of you being beaten up. But you're on your own now." Cheng Yi said a few words and swaggered away with his brothers. Yu Ji clutched his stomach. His eyes were filled with flames of anger. He walked a few steps and reached out to support a nearby tree. He then took out his mobile and dialed a number. "You're good, Xiaoya. You're using me as a knife in order to show off in front of Li Zhen, right? You're good. Remember this, we're not finished yet." Yu Ji angrily roared after the other party picked up the call. "Yu Ji, don't scare me. I'm a coward. Ha ha ha. The feeling of being beaten up is not good, right? If you have the time to show off in front of me, go to the hospital and get treated. In case you become disabled in the future, or can't take care of yourself, your parents will be worried sick. In other words, if you die, we brothers will have to pool money to buy you a wreath. What a waste." The young man's teasing voice came from the phone, as if he didn't take Yu Ji's threat seriously. Yu Ji angrily roared, "You fucking ducker, just wait for me." Having said that, he fiercely smashed the phone. Not far away, Li Zhen retracted his gaze from Yu Ji, who was leaning on the tree. He looked at the smiling young man next to him and lightly said, "Xiaoya, you've gone a bit too far. We're indeed using Yu Ji, but we've been friends for so many years. Besides, I'm afraid Yu Ji has already lost his mind due to anger. You must remember that even a cornered rabbit will bite." The smile on the young man's face quickly disappeared. He silently nodded and said, "I'll keep it in mind. Don't worry. I'll be on guard against Yu Ji." Li Zhen raised his right hand and stroked his chin, looking pensive as he said, "Yu Ji is a waste." Not only did he fail to figure out Tan Xiu's background, but he also forced us to do so. I'm afraid this matter is a bit troublesome. It seems we really have to send people to carefully investigate Tan Xiu's identity. Otherwise, I won't be able to sleep well. The young man was confused. We sent people to investigate Tan Xiu before. Haven't we already investigated him clearly? He's just a country bumpkin from a small place. He has a bit of ability and was admitted to Shanghai University. Do we need to be so afraid of him? You've investigated him clearly? Li Zhen sneered. Then tell me, what's the relationship between him and Qi Nan of the Everlasting Feast Hall? Why would she want to kill Huan Yu in the car race for him? I'm afraid this brat is not simple. We'd better be careful. The young man hesitated for a moment before he nodded. Then he suddenly said, Brother Zhen, there's something I don't understand. What is it? Asked Li Zhen. I don't get it. Why did Cheng Yi bring so many people, but didn't do anything to that Tang brat? Logically speaking, the original scene should have been Cheng Yi and his 20 or so subordinates beating up that Tang guy. I know a bit about that Cheng Yi. He's cautious by nature and never does anything he's not sure about. Li Zhen sneered. He didn't do anything because he doesn't know Tan Xiu's identity. On the other hand, he's probably related to Kong Xia. After all, a man who can get a top-notch woman like Kong Xia is probably not a simple man. The young man nodded and said, You're right. A top-notch woman like Kong Xia wouldn't have been able to keep her if she didn't have the ability. Even if that top-notch woman is dead set on following him, I'm afraid she'll bring a disaster to him. But why haven't I heard of this Tan Xiu's name before? Originally, I didn't want to use my connections in Shuangqing Province's Blue City. But now it seems that I have to. I have some friendship with those brats over there. If Tanxiu is famous in Star City, I'm afraid those brats in Blue City will know about him. If they don't know about him, humph. Ding ding. The cell phone in Li Jun's pocket rang with a text message. When he took it out, he immediately frowned. The text message was sent by an unfamiliar cell phone number. The content was, I'll personally visit your Li family's patriarch in an hour. I advise you to go back immediately and explain to your elders in your family. Li Jun's expression turned extremely gloomy. After pondering for a moment, he said in a deep voice, Let's go. We'll leave first. At the Everlasting Feast Hall in Shanghai, Qi Nan was standing at the entrance with a smile while holding a stack of documents. Behind her were 4 big men in black suits who were coldly glancing around. In less than half an hour, she had learned everything about the Li family through the Everlasting Feast Hall's intelligence channel. Even the matter that the Li family's patriarch kept 2 mistresses outside, one of whom even gave birth to an illegitimate child for him, was clearly written. Boss. Qi Nan saw a taxi parked nearby. Tan Xiao and Kong Xia got off the car and immediately trotted over. How's the investigation of the intelligence? Asked Tan Xiao. I've investigated everything clearly, said Qi Nan. It's all here. Also, the car is ready. We can leave at any time. Tan Xiao nodded and said, Let's go. I'll finish reading the documents on the way. All right. Qi Nan quickly made a gesture. Suddenly, 3 black Audi cars drove over and stopped beside them. After getting on the car, Tan Xiao sat in the back seat and quietly read the documents in his hand, whereas Kong Xia curiously looked at Qi Nan in the front passenger seat. If it weren't for Qi Nan's age, who should be in her 30s, she would be a bit worried that Qi Nan and Tan Xiao would have feelings for each other based on her beauty. Xia, are you curious about me? Qi Nan looked back at Kong Xia and asked with a smile. A trace of embarrassment appeared on Kong Xia's face, as though she was caught stealing something. After hesitating for a moment, she smiled and said, Yeah, Sis Nan Nan is very beautiful and very capable. I'm a bit worried that boss will give my work to you in the future. Don't worry. I can't do your work, though I don't know what it is, Qi Nan said with a smile. Unless you can often go abroad to carry out various missions. Abroad? Missions? Kong Xia looked puzzled. Today's 2nd chapter will be released. Quiet Night will strive to return the monthly votes and chapters today. Chapter 372. Tan Xiao raised his head and glanced at Qi Nan. Then he lightly said, Kong Xia, don't listen to Qi Nan's nonsense. They're used to making a living among the dead, so they only have goals in their eyes. So no one can take away your job. What? Kong Xia was shocked by Tan Xiao's words. Looking at the fashionable and beautiful Qi Nan, it was hard for her to think of Qi Nan in that aspect. She had been abroad for many years and held a very high position, so she naturally knew a lot of information that ordinary people could hardly access. That kind of people. They could be called killers or criminals, but they were most commonly known as mercenaries. Could it be Qi Nan was a mercenary? In the front passenger seat, Qi Nan said with a smile, Boss, you really trust this female subordinate of yours a lot, don't you? No one else knows my identity except for the core members of the Everlasting Feast Hall. You told her my identity just like that? She has already obtained that opportunity, said Tan Xiao calmly. The smile on Qi Nan's face froze. Her eyes shifted to Kong Xia with unreserved envy. She wanted to obtain that opportunity even in her dreams, but the Everlasting Feast Hall had an internal rule that it would never be passed down unless one had made a great contribution to the restaurant. However, so far, only 7 people in the Everlasting Feast Hall were able to obtain this opportunity. Apart from the little boss, Gu Xiaoxue, and excluding the 4 business executives appointed by boss Tang Xiao, only Light and Dark had obtained it. However, she also guessed that the 2 brothers, Mo An and Mo Au, had also obtained that opportunity. That being said, aside from Big Boss Gu Yan'er and the mysterious Elder Ji, there were no more than 10 people in the entire Everlasting Feast Hall. And now there was one more person. Tan Xiao calmly observed Qi Nan's expression and said, When the heaven is about to bestow a great responsibility on a man, It first tortures his mind, exhausts his muscles and bones, starves his body, empties his body, and throws his actions into disorder. Therefore, it tempts the heart to be patient, and increases the impossible. This is my favorite sentence in the Mencius Geozixia. Chinan pondered for a moment before she slowly nodded and said, I understand your meaning, boss. Tanxiu nodded slightly, and flipped through the information in his hands again. Shanghai Puning District. Zhenfan Villa District, Villa B12. Li Haoran was wearing pajamas as he quietly leaned on the sofa and flipped through a document. Recently, he had been living very comfortably. Most of the Li Group's business had been handed over to his daughter, Li Dan, to handle. Furthermore, the company's performance was booming, which made him very relaxed. However, although his daughter was very capable, he still had to control the overall situation to prevent any problems from arising. Dad, you haven't rested yet. Li Zhen played with the car keys as he walked into the villa. Li Haoran rolled his eyes, feeling a headache coming on. His heart was filled with helplessness towards his son. Ever since he was young, he had been spoiled rotten by his mother. Now he was ignorant and incompetent. Even if she reprimanded him, he would turn a deaf ear to it. Little Zhen, come and sit. Li Haoran still wanted to have a good talk with his son. If this went on, he was afraid that his precious son would be crippled. Li Zhen sat down opposite Li Haoran. He crossed his legs and said, Dad, what do you want to say? I want to talk about your work, said Li Haoran. Our Li family is a big family with a big business. Those uncles of yours are eagerly eyeing us. Although your sister is very hardworking, she is after all a girl. In the future, the Li family's business will be handed over to you sooner or later. Dad. Li Zhen opened his mouth. Li Haoran waved his hand to interrupt him and said, Little Zhen, I know what you want to say. But you can't just idle away your days like this, can you? I'm thinking that our Li Group has an advertising company. I want to hand over this advertising company to you. Regardless of your business situation, it's mainly to let you hone your skills and become a useful talent in the future. Dad, the home appliance company you handed over to me before has already been closed down by me. Li Zhen forced a smile. Now you want to hand over an advertising company to me. Even if our family's business is big, I can't afford to toss it around like this, right? Besides, I know my own situation. I'm not cut out to do business. An angry expression appeared on Li Haoran's face as he said in a deep voice, You can learn if you don't know, and you can ask if you don't understand. Let your sister help you with the big ideas, but you can experience the small things yourself. I believe you can do it with your sister's help. Li Zhen hesitated for a long while before he forced a smile and said, All right. Since you want me to go to that advertising company, then I'll go there. But can you give me some time? I just caused some trouble, and I need to solve it first. What trouble? Asked Li Haoran with raised brows. It's nothing actually, said Li Zhen. He's a student at Shanghai University. His identity and origin are very mysterious. I've sent people to investigate him for several days, but they haven't found out anything about him. Tonight, that brat Yuji was beaten by that guy. I used some tricks behind his back, wanting Yuji to probe him. But the result was that waste Yuji. Not only did he fail to probe that guy's details, but he even got beaten up. Li Haoran shook his head and smilingly said, You little guys are just like us when we were young. Can't you just calm down? So be it. I'll send little Li to investigate that guy's situation tomorrow. If possible, I'll help you solve this matter. Let me solve this trivial matter myself, Dad. Li Zhen laughed. Don't worry, I won't take it lightly. Besides, this is also the time for me to prove my ability, right? Li Haoran couldn't help laughing. Just as he was about to speak, his mobile phone on the table suddenly rang. Why is old Gu calling me so late? Li Haoran muttered. After he picked up the phone, a smile appeared on his face as he said, Brother Gu, it's already so late. Yet you haven't slept yet? Brother Li, you're really forgetful, aren't you? We've made an appointment to play cards. Yet you haven't come yet. Don't tell me you've already fallen asleep. Look at my brain. I've been so bored recently that my brain isn't working well. All right, I'll go there immediately. Let's go to your place. Clean up your chess room and prepare some good tea for us. All right. He hung up the phone. Li Haoran looked at Li Jun and said with a smile, Your Uncle Gu and the others are coming to our place to play cards. The maids are resting, so you go clean up the chess room. Also, take out some good tea leaves from my study and make a pot of tea for us. No problem, said Li Jun with a smile. He got up and walked a few steps toward the stairs. Suddenly, he recalled something and stopped. He then turned his head and said, Dad, there's something I forgot to tell you. That brat guessed that I wanted to kill him with a borrowed knife and ordered Yuji to deal with him, so he sent me a text message. What did he send? Asked Li Haoran with a frown. Li Jun returned to Li Haoran's front. He took out his mobile phone and opened the text message, saying, This is the text message he sent me. After reading it, a sneer appeared on Li Haoran's face as he lightly said, Since he wants to visit, then let him come. Call the residential security and tell them. If that guy comes, tell them to directly let him go. All right. Li Jun put away his mobile phone and replied before heading to the second floor. Li Haoran looked at Li Jun's back as he left and secretly shook his head. However, he didn't care about Tan Xiu's threat. In his view, Tan Xiu was just bluffing. If he dared to come to his Li family, it would be very difficult for him to go out safely. 20 minutes later, at the entrance of the villa complex, the residential security directly let Tan Xiu through after learning his identity. Shortly after, the car arrived outside the B12 villa courtyard. As the door was opened by Qi Nan, Tan Xiu walked out and looked at the surrounding environment. He secretly nodded. This villa complex was very upscale. Not only was the surrounding environment beautiful, but there were also surveillance cameras everywhere, and a lot of security guards patrolling nearby. Knock on the door, Tan Xiu calmly said. Immediately, under Qi Nan's instruction, a strong man walked to the door and rang the doorbell. After a while, the electric gate of the villa courtyard was opened as two middle-aged men in suits with grim expressions came out. One of them slightly furrowed his brows when he saw the lineup outside and asked in a deep voice, Who are you? Tell Li Haoran that our boss is here to visit, said Qi Nan coldly. Is your boss surnamed Tang? The middle-aged man frowned. That's right, said Qi Nan. The middle-aged man directly stepped aside and lightly said, Our boss ordered us to directly enter if you come. Tang Xiu glanced at him. The moment he stepped into the courtyard, he saw that there were 4 strong men in the courtyard, all of whom were looking at him with malicious intentions. However, after seeing the people around Tan Xiu, the 4 men's complexion changed and turned a lot more solemn. Tan Xiu stepped into the door and instantly saw Li Haoran sitting on the sofa in the living room, who had changed into casual clothes. Boss Li is so elegant. You still have the time to drink tea here so late. Li Haoran looked at Tan Xiu. When he saw Kong Xia, Qi Nan, and the 4 black-clothed men following Tan Xiu, he slightly frowned. While trying to figure out Tan Xiu's identity, he stood up and said, I'm going to play cards with some friends later, so I'm waiting for them. You're Tan Xiu? Tan Xiu didn't rush to answer him, but stood in the hall and observed the environment inside. After about a minute or two, his eyes fell on Li Haoran and sighed. What a good house. Even compared to the place I live, it's not inferior at all. Boss Li is really capable, but it's a pity that he gave birth to a prodigal son. Li Haoran squinted his eyes and indifferently said, You haven't answered my question yet. Tan Xiu pointed to himself and smilingly said, Me? What question do you want me to answer? You. Li Jun was furious. He didn't expect Tan Xiu to be so arrogant. Chapter 373. Looking at the angry Li Haoran, Tan Xiu deliberately showed a look of sudden realization. He directly sat on the sofa opposite him and smilingly said, I just remembered that you just asked me if I'm called Tan Xiu. That's right, I'm called Tang Xiu. I won't change my name or my surname. Li Haoran coldly smiled and gestured to a big man standing behind him. The big man immediately took a teacup and poured a cup for Tan Xiu. You're a guest. Have some tea. Glancing at the teacup, Tan Xiu gave a thumbs up and praised. Patriarch Li is really gracious. I behaved so arrogantly. Yet you're still willing to invite me to have some tea. It seems like I'll have to learn self-restraint from Patriarch Li in the future. Mr. Tang must be joking, said Li Haoran lightly. I don't dare to be the patriarch of the Li family. I'm just a man of my word. You don't even dare to be the patriarch? Tan Xiu was surprised. Am I overestimating your Li family? As far as I know, the real big families in the country have their own patriarchs. Mr. Tang, there's a saying that it's better to squash enmity than keep it alive. Li Haoran sneered and said, I know why you're here and the conflict between you and my son. I'm talking to you in a good tone, so don't be so sarcastic. If it's my son's fault in this matter, I'll make him bow his head and admit his mistake. But if it's you who bullied others, I won't let it go. Tan Xiu's expression changed. The moment he straightened his body, he sneered and said, I just praised you for being gracious. Yet you turned into an angry lion in the blink of an eye. Not to mention that it's your son's fault. Even if I'm the one who bullied others, what can you do to me? Li Haoran was furious. What about me? Tan Xiu sneered. Do you think your Li family is so big that you can indulge your eldest son's arrogance? Bullying others? He provoked me this time. If it were someone else, I'm afraid your Li family would be even more arrogant, no? Don't be so insolent, Tan Xiu. Li Zhen came down from the second floor and strode toward Tan Xiu and angrily shouted. Tan Xiu observed Li Zhen and sighed. It turns out that the main character is here. Your father is backing you up, which makes me very unhappy. Li Zhen, tell me, was tonight's play of killing with a borrowed knife interesting? If it's interesting, the very, very boring me has to learn from you. Li Zhen feigned ignorance. I don't know what you're talking about. A smile outlined on the corner of Tang Xiu's mouth as he lightly said, Do you know why I didn't call you out when I cleaned up Yuji tonight? Because I wanted to come to your house and meet your father. I wanted to see what kind of person he was to be able to give birth to such a stupid son like you. Of Zhen was Li. Zhen was Li. Li Haoran raised his hand to interrupt Li Zhen. His eyes stared fixedly at Tang Xiu as he said in a deep voice, Mr. Tang, please watch your words. Don't think you can be arrogant in my Li family just because you brought a few people with you. What I heard from my son's mouth wasn't entirely true. Tell me, the reason for your enmity. Just now, from Tan Xiu's words, he heard something that made him secretly startled. His eldest son? There were no more than 5 people in the world who knew that he had 2 sons. He couldn't figure out how Tan Xiu knew about it. Li Haoran, right? Tan Xiu waved and said, Don't play dumb with me. You know what kind of person your son is. I'm here to ask for an explanation. If you can't satisfy me, I'll kill you. What can you do if I don't satisfy you? Li Haoran sneered. Who has the guts to come to the Li family in the middle of the night to make trouble? A voice came from outside the door. Immediately after, 3 middle-aged men entered the room surrounded by 5 or 6 bodyguards. Li Haoran slightly furrowed his brows, a bit of shame and annoyance in his eyes. His old friends came to play cards, only to run into some troublemakers, which made him feel ashamed. Brother Gu, Brother Chun, Brother Gao. I didn't expect you to arrive so soon. It's just a trivial matter. I'll send them away later, and then go to the chess room to play a few games with you. How about you wait for me in the chess room first? Li Haoran got up to greet them and said. The eyes of the 3 middle-aged men simultaneously fell on Tan Xiu. In a flash, one of the middle-aged men's complexion changed. As if he didn't hear Li Haoran's words, he strode toward Tan Xiu. With a smile on his face, he stretched out his hand and said, I didn't expect to see Brother Tang here today. No wonder the magpies were singing all day today. Tan Xiu slightly furrowed his brows. He didn't expect to see an acquaintance here. And this acquaintance turned out to be Gu Changmin, the owner of Dingshan Media, who had placed an order with him without knowing anything about the god's nectar. He stood up. Tan Xiu shook hands with Gu Changmin and lightly smiled. I'm also a bit surprised. I didn't expect that Brother Gu would come to the Li family late at night to play cards. What a good mood. I've been idle lately and have nothing to do, said Gu Changmin with a smile. I have some money in my hands, but I don't know what to do. How about you take me with you, Brother Tang? Let me make a small fortune with you. Brother Gu, you're joking. You're a big businessman. How could you take a fancy to my small business? Said Tan Xiao. You're too modest, Brother Tang, said Gu Changmin with a straight face. Brother Miao has told me a lot of things about you. I, Gu Changmin, don't admire many people in my life, but I admire you from the bottom of my heart. Let's not talk about anything else. Just the big project you're doing in Star City is something I can't catch up with. Tan Xiao faintly smiled. He had some understanding of Miao Wentong, and believed that he wouldn't say anything about his identity as a cultivator. Brother Gu is overpraising me. Since you're here to play cards, then go to the chess room and wait for this Li Haoran. I guarantee that he'll be safe and sound tonight. Gu Changmin's complexion slightly changed. He turned to look at Li Haoran, who came with him. His expression turned serious and he said in a deep voice, Li Haoran, what's the matter with you? Brother Tang is an easygoing person. For him to come to your Li family in person, it means that someone in your Li family has made a mistake. What are you still staring blankly for? I'll apologize to Brother Tang. Li Haoran was stunned. He simply couldn't believe his ears. His old friend of decades actually wanted him to apologize to a young boy who hadn't even grown his hair yet? Also, what did he mean by winking at him? Suddenly, he recalled what his son said before. He had yet to investigate this Tan Xiao's identity until now. Could it be that his identity and background are not simple? As he thought up to there, he turned his head and fiercely glared at his son Li Zhen. A very ugly smile appeared on his face as he said, Mr. Tang, I didn't know that you and Brother Gu knew each other. I hope you can be magnanimous and forgive me for my offense. Also, you don't have to say anything. I also know that my son is a troublemaker. You can rest assured that I'll teach him a lesson. Li Zhen, why are you still staring blankly? Come here and apologize to Mr. Tang. Dad, why are we afraid of him? Li Zhen angrily said. I don't believe that he can do anything to me. Gu Changmin noticed that Tan Xiao's complexion changed and immediately cursed inwardly. Almost in an instant he strode to Li Zhen's front, raised his hand and fiercely slapped him, angrily shouting, Shut the hell up. Your elder asked you to apologize, so you must apologize to me. Li Haoran dotes on you and controls you. That's your family's business. But you're his son, so don't court disaster for him. Apologize. Li Zhen covered his cheek as if he couldn't believe that the slap just now was on his face. Furthermore, the one who slapped him was not his father, but Gu Changmin. He wanted to flip out, but Gu Changmin's identity made him not dare to rashly open his mouth. Therefore, his eyes once again shifted to his father, Li Haoran. Li Haoran's complexion turned a bit unsightly. He didn't expect that Gu Changmin would hit him. However, since the situation had turned into this, it was not good for him to fall out with Gu Changmin on the spot. He could only endure the resentment in his heart and shouted in a deep voice, Apologize. Li Zhen looked at his father and then at Gu Changmin. Finally, with an unwilling expression, he faced Tan Xiao and said, Tan Xiao, I apologize for what I did before. I didn't have good intentions tonight. I'm sorry. If I see you later, I'll take a detour according to our agreement. Take a detour. These 3 words were said in a very heavy tone. Tan Xiao coldly glanced at Li Haoran and Li Zhen. Then he turned to look at Gu Changmin and lightly said, Since Brother Gu wants to stand up for the Li family's father and son, then I'll forget about this matter. However, if anyone from the Li family provokes me again, don't blame me for being ruthless. Gu Changmin quickly smiled and said, Yes, yes. Thank you for your magnanimity, Brother Tang. Do you have time tomorrow? I'll treat you to a meal. Forget about the meal. I still have some things to do, so I'll take my leave first, said Tan Xiao. Gu Changmin quickly turned his head and winked at Li Haoran. Then he said with a smile, I'll send you off. A few minutes later, as the 3 cars left, Li Haoran, who was standing at the courtyard's entrance, looked gloomy. His eyes stared at Gu Changmin as he suppressed his anger and said, Brother Gu, I need you to give me an explanation. Gu Changmin's expression also turned a bit unsightly. He knew what Tan Xiao meant when he left. He didn't know how the wine produced by Tan Xiao's winery was before he made a big order. This could be considered as establishing a friendship with Tan Xiao, as well as giving him face. However, He was originally happy to play cards with Li Haoran today, but he had used up his face. Thinking about this matter made him feel a bit distressed. You want me to explain it to you here? Gu Changmin said with a cold face. Li Haoran's brows furrowed deeper, but he still said, Please come inside. The other two middle-aged men exchanged glances. They could sense the problem between Gu Changmin and Li Haoran. However, they secretly lamented Gu Changmin for being such a busybody. He even forced Li Haoran to apologize in the Li family's residence and even beat Li Zhen. They felt that it was too much. Chapter 374. In the villa's living room, Gu Changmin shook his head and said, Let's go to your study. Some things will be very troublesome if they were to be spoken out. I've already wasted my friendship with Tan Xiao for the sake of you and your father. I don't want any more problems to crop up. Brother Chun and Brother Gao are not outsiders. I think it's fine for them to hear it, no? Said Li Haoran lightly. Today I, Li Haoran, have lost face in front of them. If this matter were to be spread out later, I would have no place to hide my face. Gu Changmin's expression turned cold. He angrily stared at Li Haoran for half a minute before he turned around and walked outside. Hey Brother Gu, what are you doing? Brother Li wants to save his face first. So, well, I and old Gao will wait for you in the chess room. The middle-aged man surnamed Li forced a smile and caught up with Gu Changmin, pulling his arm. Li Haoran's expression slightly changed. Gu Changmin's abnormal attitude made him somewhat incredulous. It must be noted that he and Gu Changmin had known each other for decades, yet this was the first time he saw him acting so abnormal. Could it be? Was there really a problem with his attitude? Did he really help me? Li Haoran's mind raced and the anger in his heart disappeared a lot. He walked a few steps toward Gu Changmin and forced a smile. Brother Gu, I didn't mean anything by it. We've known each other for decades, so you should know what kind of temper I have. Today, someone came to my door and I have to bow my head and admit my mistake in my own home. I'm really angry inside. I hope you can forgive me if I offended you. The middle-aged man surnamed Gao also opened his mouth. Brother Gu, tell us what's going on. We're not outsiders, and I don't understand why you acted like afraid in front of that young man surnamed Tang. In any case, I'm afraid I'll also be like Brother Li if this matter were to happen to me. Gu Changmin took a deep breath. He looked at the curious expressions of the three people, as well as Li Zhen's embarrassed expression a few steps away. He sighed softly and returned to the sofa to sit down. Tell them to go out. Li Haoran immediately waved to all the bodyguards to leave the hall. Gu Changmin slowly said, Everyone, you should know the Miao Group in Haiqing province, right? The Miao Group's boss, Miao Wentong, is an old friend of mine for many years. You should also know him. Got it. I have. And the three of them nodded. Their eyes filled with confusion. Gu Changmin sighed and said, Among the two women who followed Tan Xiao just now, I believe you've seen the slightly older one, right? The middle-aged man surnamed Gao said, I've seen her, and I have a deep impression of her. She's the manager of the Everlasting Feast Hall, a slick woman who's very good at management. Yes, it's the Everlasting Feast Hall. Gu Changmin nodded. I don't know how much you know about the Everlasting Feast Hall. Li Haoran frowned and said, Brother Gu, the Everlasting Feast Hall is just an upscale restaurant. Who are we? What's the point of knowing a restaurant? Gu Changmin shook his head and said, If the Everlasting Feast Hall was just an upscale restaurant, I naturally wouldn't have any fear in front of Tang Xiao. I wouldn't have made friends with him. As a matter of fact, it's fortunate that I'm here today. You don't see any obvious intention of fawning on me. If old Jin, that is Jin Xingkue, was here, he wouldn't be hoping to befriend me, but flatter me instead. Li Haoran's expression slightly changed and he quickly said, Brother Gu, tell me about the Everlasting Feast Hall. I learned about the situation of the Everlasting Feast Hall from Brother Miao Wentong a few days ago, said Gu Changmin slowly. I learned that the owner of the Everlasting Feast Hall is Tan Xiao, so I sent some people to investigate it. Although I didn't dare to send people to investigate it in depth, the little information I got was enough to shock me. The Everlasting Feast Hall's headquarters is in Jingmen Island, which was established decades ago. The restaurant only has branches in Jingmen Island, Hong Kong, Shanghai, and the imperial capital. According to the information I got, it also has gold, silver, jewelry, real estate, and luxury jewelry businesses. My ability is limited, and I don't dare to investigate the Everlasting Feast Hall with great fanfare, so I got this information. As for how much business the Everlasting Feast Hall has, I don't know. Brother Gu, just because the Everlasting Feast Hall has a big business, you asked Li Haoran. Gu Changmin waved his hand to interrupt him and lightly said, Li Haoran, I actually regret it now. I shouldn't have meddled in other people's business. Brother Gu. Li Haoran opened his mouth. You don't need to explain. Gu Changmin shook his head. Don't you want to know why I acted so strangely? I can tell you directly that your Li family will be finished if I don't plead for leniency for you tonight. Perhaps tomorrow will be the death anniversary of you and your father. From another point of view, if the three of us didn't happen to come here to play cards tonight, I'm afraid your Li family would have been massacred tonight. Li Haoran abruptly got up and looked at Gu Changmin asking, Brother Gu, you're not trying to scare me, are you? We're living in a society ruled by law now. Those rich and powerful people may be able to solve it by killing 1 or 2 people. But slaughtering an entire family is simply a joke, no? Gu Changmin coldly looked at him and coldly snorted. You're just ignorant. If you don't believe me, I'll prove it to you. Having said that, he took out his cell phone and dialed a number. After it was picked up, he directly put it on speaker and said, Old Jean, it's Gu Changmin. Brother Gu, you haven't rested yet? Jean Xinkui's cheerful voice came out of the phone. Old Jean, not only did I not sleep, but I also made a losing deal, said Gu Changmin. What happened? Jean Xinkui was confused. Tell me, do you want me to help you with something? It's me, Old Jean. I'm with Li Haoran now, said Gu Changmin with a forced smile. I'll ask you a few questions. You just need to answer them, and you'll help me a lot. I don't want to use my relationship with Tang Xiao and end up in a situation where I'm in a bad position. All right. Tell me, wait a minute. What did you just say? You used up your relationship with Tan Xiao? We had to put on a smiling face in the Everlasting Feast Hall, and it wasn't easy to get it back? Jean Xinkui's exclamation came out of the phone. Yes, replied Gu Changmin bitterly. Jean Xinkui was silent for a moment before he slowly said, Brother Gu, I don't know what you're going to say has anything to do with Tan Xiao, but I can tell you that unless it's a matter of life and death for our family, using up our relationship with Tan Xiao will be a big loss. All right, tell me, what's the matter? I came to the Li family tonight by a freak combination of factors. As a result, I bumped into Tan Xiao, who came to ask for an explanation. Li Zhen provoked Tan Xiao, and the enmity between them seems to be very deep. I believe you also know how protective Li Haoran is. I'm afraid that he also provoked Tan Xiao's dissatisfaction. Therefore, I came forward to plead for leniency, and this matter was resolved. Jean Xinkui was silent for a while before he lightly said, His Li family was lucky today and avoided a bloody disaster. In my opinion, if it weren't for you tonight, even if the Li family had to spend all their assets, it would be good enough for them to keep their lives. As for Tan Xiao, anyone can be provoked in this world, but not that fiend. Li Haoran couldn't sit still. He didn't expect that Jean Xinkui would say such words, so he quickly said, Brother Jean, I'm Li Haoran. Can you tell me who Tan Xiao is? Does he really have such a powerful background behind him? His background? Jean Xinkui sneered. He doesn't need any background. Just the Everlasting Feast Hall's boss can easily destroy your Li family. Let alone your Li family, my Jean family, and Brother Gu. Even if the three of us join forces, I'm afraid we won't be able to do anything to the Everlasting Feast Hall. There's a 99% chance that all three of us will be exterminated. Brother Jean, aren't you just being an alarmist? Li Haoran asked in horror. Do you think I'm an alarmist? Jean Xinkui sneered. Do you think I'm an alarmist? Li Haoran's complexion turned a bit pale. Li Haoran, to tell you the truth, you owe Brother Gu a huge favor, said Jean Xinkui. This favor is so big that it won't be an exaggeration to ask your Li family to pay it back in the future. All right, I've said everything I need to say. You're on your own now. The call ended. Now do you know why I asked you to apologize to Tan Xiao? Gu Changmin said lightly. It's because I, an outsider, personally hit your son in front of you? If I didn't hit him, he would have died tonight. Do you dare to intervene? If you intervene, your Li family will be wiped out. You don't know how terrifying the everlasting feast hall is. To be honest, even I don't know much about it. But my old friend, Miao Wentong, knows it, and so does Jin Xingkue. Li Haoran abruptly got up and strode toward the shocked Li Zhen. He fiercely slapped him a few times and angrily shouted, "Go to the study room and kneel. See how I'll deal with you." Li Zhen was trembling with fear as he covered his face and quickly ran toward the study room. If it were in the past, he might have gone against his father. But what happened tonight, as well as several powerful big shots in Shanghai who were terrified of Tan Xiao, made him realize that he had provoked a terrifying existence. Li Haoran returned to the sofa, but he didn't sit down. Instead, he looked deeply at Gu Changmin and said, "Brother Gu, I, Li Haoran, will always remember today's kindness. You're a magnanimous man, so please don't lower yourself to my level for what I just did. If you need anything in the future, just say it. As long as I, Li Haoran, can do it, I'll do it without hesitation." Gu Changmin's expression eased a lot and he sighed. "Brother Li, if it weren't for our decades of friendship, I wouldn't have said anything more tonight. Had it been someone else, I might have hit Tang Xiao when he was down in order to express my goodwill. We're old friends, so I won't speak empty words with you. I kind of regret coming to your Li family tonight." 5 chapters have been released today. Are you guys surprised? Chapter 375. Li Haoran looked a bit embarrassed. After he sat back on the sofa, he forced a wry smile and said, "Who would have thought that Tan Xiao would have such a terrifying power at such a young age? We're in a high position, so we can see a lot of things more clearly than ordinary people," said Gu Changmin. "Our status and wealth are actually just a joke in the eyes of many people. For example, those families that have been passed down for hundreds, or even hundreds of years. They didn't fall during the Great Turmoil, and even hid their strength and bided their time to quietly develop their family's power. Who knows how terrifying they have become after so many years of accumulation?" Li Haoran deeply agreed and nodded. "You're right, Brother Gu. I was too arrogant this time. Actually, the root cause lies with your son." Gu Changmin sighed. "Li Zhen has been spoiled since he was a child. His character is arrogant and domineering, ignorant and incompetent. I've helped you solve today's matter, but what about the future? If he provokes big trouble again, how will your Li family deal with it? Will you be easily destroyed by him?" Li Haoran's expression was a bit cold as he nodded and said, "Don't worry, Brother Gu. I'll control him well in the future. I won't hesitate even if I have to make him suffer some hardships." Gu Changmin nodded. There was still a trace of worry in Li Haoran's eyes as he asked, "Brother Gu, do you think today's matter is really over? What if that Tan Xiao is narrow-minded and narrow-minded?" Gu Changmin was silent for a moment before he slowly said, "If I were you, I'd immediately inquire about his address and send him compensation overnight. As far as I know, some families that are more powerful than your Li family once lost more than half of their family's wealth because they provoked Tang Xiao." Hiss, Li Haoran's eyes turned round and he couldn't help but gasp. Immediately, he dialed a cell number and asked in a deep voice, "How much liquid funds do our company have now?" "Well, I got it. Immediately transfer 600 million to me. I need it now." After hanging up the phone, he looked at the middle-aged men surnamed Li and Gao. Seeing their horrified expressions, he forced a smile and said, "Two old friends, our Li group can only transfer 600 million funds at most, while I still have 200 million in savings. Can you lend me 200 million? Once I have enough funds, I will return it to you immediately." The middle-aged man surnamed Li asked curiously, "Are you going to give 1 billion to Tan Xiao as an apology?" Li Haoran glanced at Gu Changmin. He nodded and sighed. "I believe that Brother Gu and Jin Xingkue won't deceive me. Take out 1 billion yuan and treat it as a way to avoid disaster." Middle-aged Li and middle-aged Gao looked at each other. For this kind of thing, Both of us will fork out 100 million. If it's not enough, you can ask again. The middle-aged man surnamed Li sighed. Li Haoran gratefully looked at the two and said, "Three old friends, I'm afraid I can't accompany you to play cards tonight. Since I already owe you a big favor tonight, I, Li Haoran, will shamelessly ask the three of you to help me inquire about Tanxio's residence. I'll personally visit him later." "No problem. All right." The three of them nodded. Blue Star Villa Complex. Tanxio returned with Kongxia. In fact, it was Kongxia who asked to come back. As for Qi Nan and the Everlasting Feast Hall's members, they directly went back to the Everlasting Feast Hall on the way back. "Boss, is this where you live? This villa is quite stylish." Kongxia didn't have much interest in the villa, but it was someone else's villa. She had visited the place where Tanxio lived. "My aunt gave it to me." Tanxio faintly smiled. "Maybe I'll live on campus after Shanghai University officially opens. But if possible, I'll live here." "I really doubt that you can live in a public dormitory on campus," said Kongxia with a smile. "Don't look down on me." Tanxio couldn't help laughing. "I've also gone through hard times. Let alone a university dormitory, I can live a good life even if I have a shed." Kongxia let out a charming smile and walked to the front of Tanxio. She hugged Tanxio's waist and whispered, "The man I like is really a dragon among men. You know what? I've never been in love before, and I don't know what it feels like to fall in love with a man. But ever since, I've been thinking about you every day. I wonder what you're doing, whether you've eaten or not, and whether you've slept well. Now I finally understand that loving someone is to be worried and full of longing for them." Tanxio was silent for a moment, and secretly sighed inwardly. He reached out to touch her elegant long hair and whispered, "You should know that I can't give you a marriage, nor can I give you a complete love." Kongxia raised her head and looked at Tanxio with her bright eyes, asking, "Can you tell me why? Have you ever been emotionally scarred?" Tanxio avoided Kongxia's gaze and gently pushed her away. Then he slowly walked to the second floor and came to his room. He took out a bottle of red wine from the wine cabinet and poured 2 glasses. He handed one to Kongxia, who followed him inside, and then turned to the balcony. Looking at the dim lights outside and the swaying shadows of the trees, he whispered, "I used to be a person who wasn't good at expressing myself. But when I fall in love with someone, I'll give them my true feelings. But there's something I can't figure out, and I don't want to think about it anymore. Maybe I'll give my heart to someone in the future, but not now." Kongxia understood Tanxio's meaning. She gently came to Tanxio's side, folded her arms and said, "If I cultivate the cultivation technique you taught me, I can really live for a very long time. I'm confident that I can pry open your sealed heart and enter your heart." Tanxio shook his head and sighed. "There are many outstanding men in this world. Why do you?" Kongxia interrupted Tanxio with a solemn expression and said, "That's right. There are many outstanding men in this world, but none of them is better than you. Besides, you're my first man and also my last man." "I can't give you a complete family in the future," sighed Tanxio. "I've thought about it carefully. I don't need a complete family," said Kongxia without hesitation. "You just need to give me a child." "Child?" Tanxio stared blankly for a moment before he shook his head with a forced smile. At this moment, he suddenly realized something. He had been with her for so many years in his past life, yet she had never been pregnant with his child from the beginning to the end. Even if it was very difficult for a supreme in the immortal world to make a woman pregnant, it was impossible for there to be no accidents after so many years, right? Could it be? Did she use some special means to deliberately not give him a child? That's right. Her feelings for him might be fake, so how could she give birth to a child for him? A mournful look flashed in Tanxio's eyes. He gently raised his chin and looked at the distant starry sky. His eyes seemed to be able to see through the firmament, as though to penetrate through countless worlds to see the figure in the immortal world, who once made him fall in love with her. Han Qingwu? Han Qingwu's name suddenly emerged in Tanxio's mind, along with the face that was very similar to hers. Could it be her? Although they had so many similarities, but maybe it was just a coincidence. After all, Han Qingwu was just an ordinary person now. One of them was in the immortal world, while the other was on Earth. Even if she reincarnated, there was only a 1 in a billion chance that she would be reincarnated on Earth. Furthermore, although her cultivation was not as good as his, there were only a few people in the immortal world who were stronger than her, who could kill her, who could force her to be reincarnated. Tan Xiu muttered to himself inwardly. He drove the two very similar faces out of his mind, and turned to look at Kong Xia, who was in a daze. What are you thinking about? Kong Xia came back to her senses. A touch of shyness appeared on her face as she said, I'm thinking about whether the child we have in the future will be a boy or a girl. If it's a boy, he must look like you. If it's a girl, she must look like me. Don't let your imagination run wild, Tan Xiu said with a smile. It's not suitable for us to have a child now. Let's wait and see. Kong Xia hesitated for a moment and nodded silently. I'm sleepy, Kong Xia suddenly said. Tan Xiu's eyes swept over her white neck and sensual collarbone. A warm feeling flowed inside his heart. He reached out to hug her fragrant shoulder and walked toward the house with a smile. Although we're not in a hurry to have a child, we still have to enjoy the taste of humph. That night, even though Tan Xiu was a cultivator, he was still very tired. As for Han Qinggu, she was so tired that she didn't even want to move her fingers. Finally, Tan Xiu hugged her to wash her body, and then hugged her to sleep. The next morning, a ray of sunlight shone through the gap of the French window curtains and fell on Tan Xiu, who was lying on the big bed. When his eyelashes fluttered and he woke up from his sleep, he found that Kong Xia's figure was no longer beside him. Boss, you're awake? Kong Xia came in from the bedroom's door. Seeing that Tan Xiu had washed up and dressed neatly, she immediately smiled sweetly. Yeah, I just woke up, said Tan Xiu. Why did you get up so early? Are you going to the wine tasting conference? There's still time. Kong Xia nodded with a smile. I wanted to make breakfast for you, but I found that there was nothing in the fridge, so I went outside to buy some breakfast for you. That's right, there's someone waiting for you outside the villa. He seems to have been waiting for you all night. Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment and then said with a confused expression, Apart from you and Qi Nan, there seems to be no one else who knows where I live in Shanghai. Besides, Qi Nan only knows that I live in this villa complex and has never been here. It's Li Haoran, said Kong Xia. What's he doing here? Tan Xiu frowned and asked. Didn't he solve the problem last night? I don't know. Kong Xia shook her head. Tan Xiu was silent for a moment. Then he walked outside and said, Let's go. Let's go see him and see what else he wants. If he still wants to find trouble, we might as well exterminate his Li family. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.